All right. All right. All right. All right. I'm taking over Scott and Vince's channel. I had to do it. I felt bad. There was so many people waiting. I went over to Scott's channel. There was over 50 people waiting on Scott's channel. I went over to my channel. There's over 100 people watching on my or waiting for things to show up on my channel. Vince's channel, how many people are there waiting over? Vince has almost 70 people. So I felt bad, literally just keeping hundreds of people just, without anybody to talk to or listen to. And you guys are just amping it up in the chat. And I figured I'd just come on a little bit early. So I'm sure I'll be joined in just a moment from our friends. Let me just double check I'm on the right microphone and speaker. Yep. I'm sure I'll be joined by my friends Scott and Vince is bullish. So it'd be nice to be able to join them. Appreciate everybody for being here. 129 people already watching the stream. We're over 300 strong. So far, so good. We're excited. I'm excited. But I just want to get everybody to take a step back, right? There's going to be some things about this call where I'm sure people are going to be upset. I'm sure there's going to be some things about this call where people are going to be very happy. And I just want everyone to know and listen to what Sir Predebeck and Adam Spice have to say. I personally have had the opportunity to be fortunate enough where I can play this out. I'm not worried about it. The stock goes up, down, sideways. In fact, I kind of wish the stock goes down. I'd love to buy more shares, but that would mean, unfortunately, a lot of you guys in the chat would unfortunately be sitting on short-term losses. So I'm kind of stuck in a hard place. I'd love to buy more shares. I would love to buy them at a discount, but at the same time, I know that means turmoil for you guys. So it's tough. It's very tough, but excited overall to see what comes. I've been trying to refresh what's going on and hoping that we can get some news early. Nothing coming as of yet. The only thing I see is the August 5th mission success for IQPS. So excited to see what happens here. Stock's been on a complete tear. So far, it looks like things are going well. I don't know if there's some early numbers coming across on Bloomberg or what, but I just saw a quick spike. I'm not sure what that was, but it spiked up to $45 really quickly, and then it dropped right back down. Could just be a quick buy order. Sometimes people just throw in a bunch of market orders, and it jumps the stock really quickly. So fingers crossed. Generally speaking, the numbers start coming out 15 minutes after the close, 30 minutes after the close. So there's about that. And then we have the opportunity to go through the deck itself. Me, Vince, and Scott will probably go line item by line item, slide by slide, look at the numbers themselves. And with that opportunity, then we'll have the chance to then, what am I trying to say? We'll have the chance to see whether or not we think things are going to go in the right direction or not. Appreciate the over 300 of you guys being here. Let me just double check that I have everything right. Let me just make sure in the background. Okay, muy bien. 210 people on my channel. Thank you guys. Much appreciated. For those of you guys, I know some of you guys watch on Twitch. Some of you guys do not. My only request of you, if I've helped you in any sort of way, shape, or form, is to do something very selfless for yourself and help me. And why I'm asking you as somebody that, being selfless in this respect is because just like you may have gotten some sort of benefit from learning or a piece of education or at least exposure to the great company of RKLB, Palantir, any of the other companies that I talk about, there could be a whole platform or group of people on Twitch that could also be benefiting. And so while I've done well on YouTube, I hope to expand that across into other platforms like Twitter, Kick, Twitch, etc. So please do me a favor. And if you have the opportunity and have an account on Twitch, please hit the follow button If you happen to have a Prime sub, it's free for you guys. If you have that, to hit that. And all I'm trying to do is get monetized over there, and I'm very close, within a stream or two of getting monetized. Or luckily for some reason, Twitch is starting to send me some people. So awesome. So I apologize for popping the cherry early. I know that Vince and Scott, I promised them 15 minutes after, but I did not want to leave you guys waiting. So appreciate it. And we're getting the numbers up here early. Almost 300 people on my channel already. Scott, almost over 122. Vince, almost 100. And now we got over 20 some folks on Twitch. So much appreciated. Love the support. And wow, absolutely phenomenal. Let's just hit let's just keep hitting the refresh button on Rocket Lab. Once again, I hope you guys don't get too up or down. This is something where, in my opinion, is a very early innings of potentially the greatest space company around, aside from SpaceX, right? And you can see that the market in the long term is going to be here, right? We saw Firefly today jumping off, hitting over a $10 billion market cap at its peak, and now settling down at $58. That's overvalued, in my opinion. Overvalued. If a company like Firefly, which has had a shoddy record at launch, no offense, they're a great company, and I hope they do well, and it'll add competition to the system. But comparatively to the success that Rocket Lab has had, to me, the fact that it's almost half the price of Rocket Lab is a slap in the face. Slap in the face. Or one of two things. Slap in the face for Rocket Lab, or both companies are extremely overvalued. So you can see we're pushing up 1.5% almost after hours. And it's looking like it want to continue to go up. We'll see what numbers come up as. Continuing to refresh. Hopefully the numbers kind of come through. And hopefully we have our friends Scott and Vince here joining us momentarily. I hope you guys are having a great day. I'm hoping that you guys had a great earnings week thus far. It's probably the second week of big earnings for you guys. And here he is, the myth, the legend himself. You already got a couple hundred people on your channel watching, my friend.
Really? How come you went? Did you go live early?
I felt bad. There was like over 200 people just sitting there, like just messaging in the chat, and I was like, dang it. So
okay, just say the truth. Early. You just wanted to go live before Dave G.
Yes, that too. I wanted to go live before Hot Dave, so that way we get the fruitful viewers.
Vince is bearish. We're all bearish, guys.
We're all bearish. No, but I did tell everybody, I was like, there's gonna be things that we love, there's gonna be things that we hate. But it looks like numbers are positive, considering the stock is now up 5% after hours. I'm refreshing, I'm not seeing anything yet. So it looks like somebody on a Bloomberg terminal or something see something, because I don't see anything as of yet.
Yeah. I was not late, guys. We were supposed to go. There's people saying I'm late. We were supposed to go live actually just now. So I was like 2 minutes early. Scotto was late. I'm throwing you under the bus.
My bad. Well, I mean, I was 1 minute early technically, but
yeah, no, I was the one that was I told everybody I jumped the gun. But yeah, it's excited. I saw that there was like 200 people waiting, and I was like, I felt bad. I normally don't have this type of excitement, so I took the opportunity to jump on a little bit early. So yes, hoping for let's just see. You guys, what are your thoughts? Anything? Looks like we're up after hours.
I was just looking at the projections that they made. And basically, if the gross margin comes in line to what they have been projecting, it will be the highest GAAP gross margin and highest adjusted gross margin that they have ever reported. And I'm really excited about that, because I think before the 2019 Tesla run, like the telltale sign that Tesla was going to be a wildly profitable company was that they had industry-leading gross margins. So yeah, I'm very excited about that. But the growth rate seems to be slowing. I don't know if I can share my screen. Is actually slowing down. So obviously the backlog is going to be super important for us, and Neutron as always.
Are you trying to share? Or?
Let me see. Yeah, no, I tried. So this is their quarter over quarter like growth in percentages, and you can see that it is showing it's showing like a middle finger, but the general trend has been down since 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 quarters in a row. And keep in mind, it's still a very good growth. I think if they report as guided, then it will be a 24% growth, which is very, very nice growth. It's just it's being compared to 100 and something percent a few quarters ago, and that's not so lucky.
Yeah, to me, I think it's difficult. I mean, you have a lot of this investment, not necessarily. I mean, you do have some investment in the space systems. You have some investment in the Electron space. You have some investment in the Haze space. But I think you're really going to see the hockey stick come in and the growth reaccelerate when Neutron comes in. And so I think it's tough to kind of say, growth is slowing. Yes, and it's a short-term problem for a long-term solution in my thought process.
Exactly.
Scott, any thoughts?
Nothing yet. I'm just kind of getting caught up, getting everything calibrated, and I continually refreshing that website. So earnings don't seem to be out quite yet, but we did see that beautiful picture of the new Archimedes. So I think that's and I mean, Rocket Lab's definitely been kind of how do you say, like glamorizing all of these announcements with that Mars orbiter. I know nothing's confirmed yet, but it is an interesting point of illustration as we lead into this print that they're using that as the image, as the kind of showrunner. So maybe we get the news today. Hopefully we get that news today. That's all we need for the backlog to see a nice uptick is that one contract. So.
But you think they would wait with announcing it until the earnings call? It feels like the earnings call is not the right place to announce such a thing, or?
Yeah, good point. Like something of that magnitude, I don't think like I think MDA and SDA were both like their own like
yeah.
I think the market closed. They're like, hey, we're doing a presentation here in a half hour, and then I think they'd probably make a bigger deal than that. But I mean, it has been a quiet quarter in terms of other like space systems bookings. So usually we get something announced throughout the quarter, and this one's been nothing at all. We do have the 3 launches that were signed during the quarter. The one with Kratos, the one with NASA Vader, the Aspera mission, and then the U.S. Air Force Neutron, which was April. So we do know a bit about launch backlog. So I mean, they're already set up for a nice uptick for Q2.
Very good. Just want to put on the screen what the outlook from Rocket Lab for Q2 2025 was. As people are noting, the pop that happened after hours, up 5%, is now disappearing. We're only up 0.5% after hours. But yes, Vince was right in terms of GAAP gross margins, hopefully ranging between 30-32%. That would be phenomenal. Non-GAAP, hopefully north of 34%. That would be phenomenal as well. Operating expenses 96 to 98 million. Non-GAAP operating expenses 82 to 84, and that would end up being a potential loss of EBITDA of 28 to 30 million, and then an increase of share count of $514 million. Revenue 130 to 140 million. So fingers crossed, year-over-year increases in both space systems and launch. So they are expecting year-over-year revenue growth. So hopefully, Vince, as you kind of alluded to, even though we are seeing a decrease, things will continue in the right direction. Do want to highlight, if you guys do not follow us on Saturdays, generally speaking, me, Vince, Scott, and sometimes Dave will go live and chat for Rocket Lab Weekly. So be sure that you're following all 3 of us. I believe I have their YouTubes in my description. And if you're watching on somebody else's channel, be sure to hopefully come to each one of the other channels to make sure that you're following all of us, to make sure you do not miss out on as much news as possible.
Is the Rocket Lab website really down? I see some people.
I was going to say, I don't know what's going on. Like, you can access it if you just type in Rocket Lab Investor Relations, but for some reason the links, like I have all my stuff bookmarked, none of those are working. So I'm not sure why, but it is accessible. You just have to skirt around and go through Google.
It's working for me.
Okay.
Okay, good. I guess you're the most important. You have the stream.
Nah. Let's see. You mean like the normal Rocket Lab website? Let me see.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, you guys are right. Yeah, I have the investor relations one up, and it seems to be loading fine. So interesting. Oh man, I'm got little butterflies. I'm excited.
Did you guys go all in on Firefly today?
What was the IPO today?
Yeah, I remember how it was supposed to be like $35 to $37.
Yeah.
Last I saw, it was at 66.
Whoa.
Yeah. So a little bit of an appreciation. I think that's, I don't know how they closed, but I guess that's like, north of 10 billion, I think.
Yeah, here you go. Here's
I don't get it. I don't get it.
Oh,
but,
okay. So
we
fell below
don't-
60 by the end of the day, but still.
What's
That's-
that for market cap?
8.5 is what I'm seeing, 8.5 billion.
Uh,
I saw in the comments too, I guess the CEO was on, I think, MSNBC, and he was boasting about how they're the only ones who landed on the moon, which, for those unfamiliar, that was Rocket Lab's software. So
you just killed their vibe there. No, I mean,
sorry, guys.
that is a major achievement. I mean, as I said, the only thing that I don't get with Firefly is that like the rocket launch business is not a good business, and like we are not here in Rocket Lab because we love the launch business, even though it looks the best, but it's for their future and the space infrastructure, and I don't get that play for Firefly.
all right. We're starting to get some news through. So first and foremost, they already do not found. Okay, so I don't know if they took it up and then took it down. Let me see. Okay, so we got some news here. I'll read before we get into the earnings. There's 2 news reports in here. So we have opportunity for retail shareholders to attend the opening event of the Neutron launch site in Virginia. So let's read this. So a global leader, launch services company, and Space Systems, the official opening of LC3 on August 28th represents a bold step forward in delivering reliable space launch. So Rocket Lab is offering shareholders a chance to attend invite-only event by completing an entry form located here between 4:20 p.m. Eastern Time on August 7th and 5 p.m. Eastern Time on August 15th. To be eligible to enter, interested shareholders must be 18 U.S. citizens. Rocket Lab will randomly select 10 entrants. So, guys, let me get this link in the chat for you guys. And you guys can get after it as soon as possible. It looks like it's open literally as of 5 minutes ago.
That is awesome.
Maddie, I sent to the private chat. Rocket Lab just uploaded a new Archimedes hot fire.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, look at
Yeah.
that, too. Don't
Check that
fire me
out.
up with a good time. Hold on, let me...
Oh, and I'm hearing numbers are up too. I'll grab that link.
Yeah, numbers are up as well. I just wanted to throw this out there. We got a lot of information all coming at once, so apologies. I know that we can only do so much at once. You guys can see the graphic now, yeah?
Yep.
All right, let me know if we got audio.
Audio is good.
That's a sexy blue flame, dude.
Ooh, earnings are out.
Talk about a hot fire test, baby. Holy crap.
There's hot fire in my pants.
Holy crap, man. This thing's insane.
Yeah, the numbers are out. People are.
Looks like the stock is down a little bit. Oh my God, this is beautiful. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Wow. All right. I'm trying to go as fast as I can, people. I know this is going to be rapid succession. What do we got next? What do you think? The numbers, or should we go to the Victus Haze news? What do you numbers first or Victus Haze?
I'll let you pick.
Let's go Victus Haze. That'll be quick.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll get deep in the numbers. We got half hour at least till the call. So
yeah. We always end up getting bogged down by the call or the presentation. I do, at least, because I know I get into the numbers. Okay. Let me zoom in a little bit. Sorry, my mouse wheel is broken, so I got to do it this way. All right. So the clear integration milestone for Victus Haze, delivering end-to-end capabilities for responsive space operations. Excuse me. Rocket Lab National Security LLC, a wholly owned subsidiary of Rocket Lab USA, is a global leader in launch services and space systems. They're today announcing the successful completion of their system integration review for the U.S. Space Force Victus Haze mission, part of the Space Systems Command Tactically Responsive Space program led by Space Safari in partnership with Defensive Innovation Unit. The full press release can be viewed at businesswire.com. The SAR was completed in May and marked a critical program milestone, confirming all space components, systems, software were ready for final integration and testing. The milestone followed Rocket Lab's successful critical design review earlier in the year, which validated the mission design and cleared the way for production. Following the SIR, Rocket Lab completed spacecraft integration, and the vehicle is now entering final testing just 15 minutes after contract award, underscoring Rocket Lab's speed and efficiency. Rocket Lab is the only provider delivering complete end-to-end mission solution to Space Safari. This includes satellite design, component manufacturing, integration and testing, flight and ground software, mission and launch licensing, launch commissioning, and on-orbit operations. Wow, end-to-end is right. Rocket Lab owns the entire mission lifecycle, simplifying program execution. I'm assuming this is, it's Brad Clevenger. Okay. Victus Haze is more than responsive launch. It's about ensuring the U.S. can act at the speed of need in a contested space domain, said Brad Clevenger, president of Rocket Lab National Security. With Rocket Lab's flight-proven systems and fully integrated mission capability, we're uniquely positioned to deliver the agility, speed, and reliability that national security demands. I could go on, but do you guys have any initial thoughts?
One step closer. That's all. Love to see it.
Yeah,
Love
the
to
same.
see it.
The same. I think we should go over to the numbers.
Vince doesn't give a crap. He's just like, what are the numbers? That's all.
No, I peeked a little bit, and it's really good. Like the stuff that I saw, it was really, really good.
Let's see. All right. Do any of you want to take a shot at reading? Or you want me to read it?
You can, but maybe
All
you
right.
could go to the presentation, or you want to read that separately.
Let's just let's read what Hot Pete said, and then we can run over. Rocket Lab has delivered impressive gross margin expansion and another record revenue result this past quarter, driven by our strong operational performance and program execution that has us on track for a record year of launches and spacecraft delivery. It's also been a busy quarter of M&A activity as we progressed our progression of GEOS, strongly positioning ourselves to meet the needs of defensive initiatives like the Golden Dome, with end-to-end mission solutions across launch, spacecraft, and now payloads. We're confident our strategic investments will drive new growth opportunities that will drive us toward long-term profitability, particularly as we guide towards another potential record quarter for Q3. On the launch side of the business, with 5 flawless missions executed, Electron maintains its leadership position as the world's leading small orbital rocket, with a rising launch cadence and increasing international demands for its services. We've also made steady progress with our reusable medium lift rocket Neutron, with Launch Complex 3 now largely complete and flight hardware on its way there for first launch, bringing us closer to delivering disruptive competition to the launch industry for our commercial and national security. So they have a bunch of things. Should we just run into the presentation, or should we look at the guidance? This is third quarter guidance. Okay. Presentation?
Yeah, because I think this stuff will be covered more in depth with all like images and whatnot as well.
Apologies, going as fast as I can. Hopefully you're not too bored. It always seems slower when you're on the hook driving. All right, so business highlights. Vince, I'm calling on you. Read it out.
So 144.5 million. That's a huge beat compared to what they were guiding. 36% year-over-year growth.
Eat that, Vince. Slowing growth. Just kidding.
It still might be slowing, but gross margin, I really cared about that one, is highest ever that they have reported, and non-GAAP gross margin 36.9 fucking %, and that's, sorry, just demonetized you. It's crazy good. I really like that. I really like
36.9. That's insane.
Good. Yeah,
that's insane. 5 launches in Q2, new record set, 2 missions in 2 days apart from Launch Complex 1. That's true, because before it was within 24 hours, but 2 different launch sites. That's right. I forgot about that. First flight hardware on its way to Launch Complex 3. Okay. And then what's this behind this chat box? I can't read it. Oh, national security. Okay. Imminent acquisition of GEOS. Okay. Any thoughts on that, Scott?
No, good to see. That sounds like Q3 close to me. So that's great.
Yeah.
I think GL's probably Q3, and then Minarc's probably Q4. Hopefully we hear a bit more on the call, but looking forward to hearing more about those two.
GEOS is $275 million cash plus equity transaction, additional up to $50 million, which gives us a new business unit, which is optical systems, scale electro-optical infrared sensors for missile warning, tracking, and space domain. So very useful for national defense. Supply chain critical technology secured. Expansion into Tucson, Arizona. Here we are. And Northern Virginia. We were already in Virginia, but Northern Virginia, I guess. Adds multiple new facilities and brings global headcount to 2,600. There you go. So there's GEOS. Golden Dome. This is going to be an interesting. I assume it's Golden Dome. Space-based sensors for missile with GEOS. Constellation build for national security on time and on budget. Prime contractor. Proven integrator across multiple vendor programs. Most responsive and reliable small launch vehicle. Hypersonic and missile defense testing with Haze. Constellation deployment. National security launch with Neutron. Trusted, fast industry disruptor. Wow. They're really selling themselves in a good way.
Yeah, they got their fingerprints all over this. This is great.
That's a pretty cool picture with the Haze, Neutron, and Electron there.
Yeah.
Victus Haze. We don't have to go through this one again, I think. But for those that are kind of curious, it's the mission to launch within 24 hours to display kind of like a rapid response to on-orbit threats. SDA constellation. So I think they've gotten through all the critical reviews and design, and now it's time to actually, well, at least in the oil industry, we say cut steel. I don't know how. That's a question for Sir Peter Beck or Adam. What do they call? I guess do they just call it executing? I don't really know. So yeah, the CDR program milestone confirms the design manufacturing for 18 spacecraft was approved, and full scale production can now begin. So full bid for Tranche 3 is out.
Oh, this is big. $700 million provided for a Mars telecommunications orbiter in recent U.S. Senate budget reconciliation. Okay, so
my heart rate. I thought that it was like they got 7. I was like, what?
But Rocket Lab was the only commercial provider. Okay, so probably emphasis on commercial to propose an MTO as part of an end-to-end Mars sample return mission. Okay, to support human exploration and science missions to Mars. Interesting. Okay, so it's not locked in. I wonder what they mean by like the only commercial provider, because it wasn't Lockheed that like they bid on this, didn't they?
I thought I'd seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be commercial, wouldn't it? Like, I guess.
I actually don't know. Maybe that, I don't know.
Well, they're not government. I don't know why.
Because ULA like doesn't that count as, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe there's some technicality there.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they'll go into detail on the call. Sometimes wording. Okay, so Electron. Weekly launches, 69th launch just 2 days ago. We're on track for 20 launches, 20 plus launches. That'll be up from 16 from last year. For the quarters, 5 missions took place within 4 weeks, demonstrating weekly cadences. New launch record, 2 missions from 2 days at Launch Complex 1. Multiple space agency contracts, dedicated missions for the ESA. That's cool. I don't know. Is that a first? I don't think we've done anything for the ESA before.
We have, we have this first one, but then there was the, what was that? That recent haste. It was with, I'm drawing a blank. Dassault, I think was the name. And that's like technically a joint kind of partnership with ESA. So it's like, I think the one that we're talking about here, this is a first, and then the second one is like a technical second. It's so good to see. Like, yeah, two contracts within, I think, a quarter, both of them landed in. So it's really good to see, and a huge testament of what's to come.
New NASA launch contract. Okay, so Electron selected NASA Aspera Astrophysics Science to study the formation and evolution of galaxies. So that'll be from Q1 2026. New contract. Okay. All right. The good news. Progress. Where do I start? Let's see. There's just a lot of pictures. I'm trying to. I guess there's just pictures. I guess there's no progress update on that, but I guess this is where it's interesting. So blue means underway, white means pending, green means done. So it looks like stage 1 qualifications underway, flight mechanism test program, engine qualification, regulatory vehicle integration, stage 2 static fire, stage 1 flight, all underway. And then I guess after stage 2, they'll go to maybe stage 1.
We're so close, guys.
Yeah, a lot of these happening in parallel. Stage 2 on its way to Complex 3. So it's been cryogenically proofed, the last milestone before stage test ahead of Neutron's debut launch. So I guess is this the stage 2? Or is this a stage 2?
How do you mean? By definition, every stage 2 is a stage 2.
But no, I meant the one that will launch, or is it a test stage?
No,
2,
that
right?
I think it's the one that will launch.
I think so too. Yeah.
That's the way I'm interpreting it, and that's why I'm asking the question.
the lucky people, the retail investors that are lucky and can go to this opening, maybe we'll see this one.
Yeah, but actually, that's a good point. Maybe they will see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next on the test stand, I assume this is all the tanks and the big part of stage 1. Look at that. I always forget like the scale of it. Like,
Yeah.
it's like 2.5 people tall. Like its width is 2.5 people tall. R&D to production. Okay, so this is the thing that I think a lot of people are forgetting, right? Is like, and this is something that I'm trying to remember if we asked this in the last call after Q1, but it's like they're not just creating one and done, right? Like when they're doing this, they're creating multiples and they're getting ready and they're scaling so that they can continue building, right? So it's not like they're just only doing one and then just like, you know, waiting until it's successful so they can build the rest. It's like they're basically getting ramped up to have the assembly line ready to go. So yeah, that's what I mean by, or I assume this means by high volume manufacturing as they build the next rockets.
And it must be more geared towards the second stage, because that's another thing that was mentioned on the interview is like a lot of people are kind of expecting like, well, you build 1 rocket, then 3 rockets, then 5 rockets. But realistically, you build the first, 5 to 10 tails and then kind of shut the line down, right?
Yeah.
And the second stages, of course, need to keep pumping out, but those first 10 tails will take you like decades out in theory.
I made a prediction and I basically stated by 2035, we'll have about 125 to 150 launches from Neutron, plus or minus probably, but from 25 vehicles. So 25 stage 1s.
Yeah, I think that's totally reasonable.
Because I think you'll have, you think about it, I mean, the first one's going to go into the ocean, so you can't use that. But the second and third ones, they might try, depending on the first tests, soft water or hard water landing, depending, I guess, how good. But yeah, I mean, I anticipate by that time you'll be able to try to reuse and reuse and reuse. So we'll see.
I think there will be a few more neutrons, but yeah, the number of launches I totally agree with.
You'll think there'll be more than 25? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Because if we take the Falcon 9 as an example to follow, like it's like during the getting it to land stage, like they had a lot, like quite a lot. I also think Sir Peter Beck mentioned this, that they will like ramp up production in the beginning and then it will be less and less. And yeah, I mean, we see, but very reasonable numbers.
Oh wow, so they're up to 3 to 4 engine tests a day. 50 engine tests in the past 4 weeks. I think we just saw the 152 second stage 1 test.
Do you think they're running all the engines through all the same tests, or is it like they are like proving a concept on one engine and then they just do standard tests on other engines? Or
I don't know.
I think a bit of both. I think they probably have some that are exclusively for testing, and then they can iterate, I should say, on the like core set of engines. But those engines will still need to be tested before being used.
Guys, SpongeBob says we're on the wrong presentation because there's nothing about interest rates.
So yeah, Launch Complex 3 opening this month, August 28th. Activation underway, final construction. Our activities are closed out. So now focusing on the stack test. Oh, wow. So do you think they'll have it stacked up by the 28th?
Ooh, that would be so lucky for the retail people going there. By the way, I want to shout out to Rocket Lab because we have been asking for this retail party, right? And I've gotten a lot of pressure from a lot of people to ask Sir Peter Beck if there can be a retail party. And I think it's totally reasonable that they said that they don't have the time, and how do you call it, the launch day is probably a really bad day to have the launch, because Sir Peter Beck and the whole team is going to be crazy nervous, and we are just going to be annoying them. And the fact that they still opened the LC3 to, you know, retail investors, and they're making it available, I think it's that is the best that we could get, and they did listen to us, I think.
Interesting. So yeah, so for anybody that that wasn't aware, the website is allowing, I think it's from today, as of 4 o'clock, 4:20, I guess, to, I think it was August 15th. They're gonna everyone can, if you're a U.S. citizen, select 10 retail investors to potentially show up. So you have to have a U.S. passport, I assume. Maybe not passport, but definitely at least it's definitely at least an ID. It is a federal facility, I think, so you would have to make sure that you have that. Okay, so at the first launch. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to comment on what's on the screen. They're saying on the pad before the end of 2025. PTSD of that, like launching 2025 or on the pad.
Watch your words, Scott. Otherwise, the mob will come at you.
Yeah.
But it's true. It doesn't say launch now. It says to the pad.
But I feel like some of the risks are out of the way, but like it's like it says on the slide, not all the risks are out of the way, right? But it looks like like based off of that graphic that we saw with the currently testing / pending, it looks like things are getting slightly closer.
I mean, to be honest, I think that they're being very, very careful. Like if you're looking at like how many tests they are doing, and because logically, like you can see on the pictures that all the parts are there, right? So like in the last interview, I kind of made this joke that, you know, like I would just put these things together and then you would try to fly them. And then you would get like what this Gilmore in Australia or Astra has gotten. And I rather have them test 3 or 5 times to be absolutely sure that we have a good flight. And, you know, we get delayed a little bit. It's totally fine with me. I say we let Peter Beck be Peter Beck, and we trust them. And I don't think if you look out in 2035, it changes anything if the first launch was, you know, in 2025 or early 2026 or whatever. Why was I the one who said this again? So you guys should have cut me off, because now the mob is going to come after me.
What, the revenue wasn't increasing?
No. That like it doesn't matter if Neutron is delayed, you know. That's why I masterfully let Scott read that part. I didn't draw any attention.
I planted the idea in my head before the stream even started.
So interesting. So we're up to 144. So if you forecast it out, we stay flat. I mean, that's close to 600 million in annualized. That's pretty impressive. That's 260 for the year. We were at what? 4? What were we at last year? 4. I'm trying to remember for fiscal year 24.
I have it here. 1 sec.
But regardless, up 36% year over year. That's pretty.
436. We were last
436.
year.
Okay.
And what is it this year? What are they guiding?
I don't think they've guided yet, but I think everyone is assuming that they're not going to hit 600, and I'm still cautiously optimistic that we will. I mean, everyone I've seen is just like they're going to hit low 500s, they're going to hit 550, but I don't know. I've always just been cautiously optimistic that we're going to hit 600. 600
is 37% year over year growth compared to 78% the year before, and compared to 15% the year before. And I'm very happy, even with 28% growth. I'm very, very happy. 560, which I don't know why I have that number in my model, would be 28%. I don't remember how I got that number now. But I probably need to revise it, because they beat this number also really, really, really nice.
overtime revenue contribution from our Haste business. That's interesting to see because, well, I guess it talks. We always talk about how they're getting revenue from these things even before they launch. Year-on-year increase Electron fixed cost absorption, increased launch cadence. Okay, increased average sales price.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the margin I'm super happy with in the business. Like that's a mega bullish sign. I think that the margin is doing so good. That means that they're great at designing products that they can cheaply produce. They're great at production, and the business is scaling as they said it would scale. There is more Electron launches, and because basically you pay for the pad anyways and the personnel anyways, so after a certain point, it's just pure profit when you launch Electrons. So yeah,
So we have 8 minutes. So yeah, the margin's surprising to me as well. So like to me, I always knew we would get on a gap basis, we would get to the low 30s, but this quickly, I guess, is something that's a little bit surprising to me. And so it makes me think, like, am I underestimating what the true long-term potential? I mean, we always talked about how Neutron's gross margin eventually would be 50%, maybe more. But Neutron's not out yet, and we're not talking about reusable vehicles, so it's just surprising.
And the backlog, it did not increase.
Damn.
Or not. They don't even really specify it here. It's just 1 billion.
I'm in their 10Q, and it does say 995.4 million. So
backlog.
Yeah, so we're actually under $1 billion now.
Okay.
It's surprising. Yeah. Interesting. So OpEx.
Look, it says healthy pipeline, including multi-launch deals and large satellite manufacturing contracts can create lumpiness in backlog growth given the size and complexities of these opportunities. It does remind me of Palantir. When Palantir was getting these big government contracts, and then there was a period when they were getting very few contracts, and they were like, guys, this is lumpy. The contracts are coming.
Yeah, I just assumed that you'd start to see a little bit better growth in the backlog, but they know what they're doing. They're making all the right moves. Everything is moving in the right direction, so I'm trusting in them. Okay, 754 in cash. Wow, that's a lot. I have to figure out that. Like, I know we did some sales and stuff, but I'm trying to think how we went from the cash on hand previously to where we're at today.
We have a lot of. Is there a cash flow statement on how much the operations used up?
I should be within one of those releases, yeah. In that first one we're looking at.
Isn't it the adjusted EBITDA should be like closely matched, no? I mean, my point is just that they have, like, with 700 million, they have a really, really a huge runway, especially if the losses are going to like become less and less.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing is that they're, from an operating perspective, they're only losing 23 million a quarter, at least this time. Last quarter was 54 million in the quarter.
Yeah.
So that 32 is CapEx, right? I mean, so people need to realize, like, that's investments in facilities and stuff like that. So that's not like, hey, we sold and we're losing money on the things we sell. That's that the things that you need to look at is that's the black piece, the piece that are actually selling launches and the the overhead associated with the business. That's where the black piece comes in. That's what the ops cash comes in.
Does anybody know why the non-GAAP is bigger? Like the non-GAAP free cash flow is showing a bigger loss than the, or not, am I? No, sorry. No, okay. I'm just, I didn't see. Sorry. Forget what I was saying.
Not sure.
No, I thought that these two lines was like the non-GAAP and the GAAP, but then I see that it's a Q1 against Q2. So I was wrong.
But no, I mean the OpEx or the ops cash and the adjusted EBITDA should be pretty close.
Yeah.
And they are.
Yeah. I think this is a really good, I mean, look, it's not a banger report, but I think that everything that you want to see is there.
Oh, wow. Look at the gross margin expectations for Q3.
Whoa. GAAP gross margin. And they're going to have non-GAAP 40%. Whoa. That's really freaking good. I mean, guys, we might have to revisit the models because like it means that they will be a lot more profitable in the future than we thought.
Yeah, but the operating expenses go way up probably for look at the ops expenses. Oh, okay, never mind. R&D. So it was 106. Okay, so it's the same. Don't listen to me.
What is that? 150. What would that be?
Okay, sorry. Let me make sure that the call's up.
So the 150 that they guided for is a 45% growth. So actually the growth is re-accelerating because Q1 the growth was 32%. This quarter it was 35%, and they're guiding for what did I say? 45%. So that's really good. GAAP margins are expanding. I mean, this is a really good, really solid report.
I think so. I really do. I think it's really good. Q&A upcoming. So launch kind of, yeah. Wow. All right, this is going to be a great call. I'm really excited. I already got it up in the background. I'll switch it over in a second. We got some beautiful classical music. Oh, here we go.
Good day, and welcome to the Rocket Lab Corporation Q2 earnings call. Today, all participants will be in a listen-only mode. Should you need assistance during today's call, please signal for a conference specialist by pressing the star key, followed by 0. After today's presentation, there will be an opportunity to ask questions. To ask a question, you may press star, then 1 on your telephone keypad. To withdraw your question, please press star, then 2. Please note that today's event is being recorded. At this time, I would like to turn the conference over to Muriel Baker, Senior Communications Manager. Please go ahead.
Muriel.
Thank you. Hello and welcome to today's conference call to discuss Rocket Lab's second quarter 2025 financial results. Before we begin the call, I'd like to remind you that our remarks may contain forward-looking statements that relate to the future performance of the company, and these statements are intended to qualify for the safe harbor protection from liability established by the Private Securities Litigation Reform Act. Any such statements are not guarantees of future performance, and factors that could influence our results are highlighted in today's press release, and others are contained in our filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Such statements are based upon information available to the company as of the date hereof and are subject to change for future developments. Except as required by law, the company does not undertake any obligation to update these statements. Our remarks and press release today also contain non-GAAP financial measures within the meaning of Regulation G enacted by the SEC. Included in such release and our supplemental materials are reconciliations of these historical non-GAAP financial measures to the comparable financial measures calculated in accordance with GAAP. This call is also being webcast with a supporting presentation, and a replay and copy of the presentation will be available on our website. Our speakers today are Rocket Lab founder and Chief Executive Officer Sir Peter Beck, as well as Chief Financial Officer Adam Spice. They will be discussing key business highlights, including updates on our launch and space systems programs, and we will discuss financial highlights and outlook before we finish by taking questions. So with that, let me turn the call over to Sir Peter.
Thanks, Marielle, and thanks for everybody joining us today. Look, we've delivered impressive financial results this quarter with another record revenue of $144.5 million, above the high end of our prior guidance and up 36% compared to last year. A GAAP gross margin expansion exceeded expectations this quarter too, and the consecutive growth of the company is really exciting to drive. No surprises here that Electron continues to be the leader of the small launch industry. We had 5 launches across the quarter, 2 of them back-to-back from Launch Complex 1 in 2 days. Demand for its services is also increasing from different countries, with multiple international space agencies signed up for Electron launches this year and next. We made rapid progress towards the pad with Neutron this quarter. Launch Complex 3 is ready for its grand opening, and we've got the first rocket parts on their way to Virginia. More to share across the program in the up-and-coming slides here. And finally, in space systems, our prime contractor status is expanding with our imminent acquisition of Geost. Being able to quickly build and deploy entire satellite systems is the cornerstone of the future US defense strategy, and we're in a prime position to play within those large opportunities within launch, spacecraft, and now payloads added to our end-to-end capabilities. So let's get into those details now. We're very close to finalising acquisition of Geost, maker of missile tracking satellites for national security missions. Having cleared through the antitrust review, we're on track for signatures on paper here pretty shortly. I'll let Adam take you through the financial details later, but if there's one thing to take away from this deal, it's adding payloads on top of launch and spacecraft really cements our status as a one-stop shop for national security. We're already a trusted disruptor in the launch and prime contractor for constellation builds, and this acquisition adds to our competitive advantage. It will bring an extensive inventory of space-based missile warning sensors and manufacturing facilities in Arizona and Northern Virginia that secure the domestic supply chain of this critical technology for next-generation missile defense initiatives, like the Golden Dome and SDA constellations. The $175 billion Golden Dome program could prove to be one of DoD's largest procurements to date, and we're in a great position to capitalize on opportunities here. Our strategic investment and the way that we've scaled the company to uniquely meet its needs positions us strongly to win either as a prime contractor, or even as a sub, or even as a component supplier. Our pursuit of the Golden Dome extends just beyond payloads. Across its entire ecosystem, we have the technology and capability ready to serve. We operate the world's most reliable and responsive small launch vehicle, Electron, operating at the fastest cadence of any small launch vehicle in history, having just completed its 69th launch. With our hypersonic testing variant Haze, we are revolutionizing the way missile defense technology is tested in a hypersonic environment. Our new reusable rocket Neutron perfectly answers the call for a diversified launch for national security and can deploy entire constellations of spacecraft at once to build out the dome's proliferated architecture. We've already won more than $500 million contract with the SDA to build and operate a significant piece of their PWSA network, so there's a golden opportunity to build upon that here with our existing capability. And look, the list goes on, but I won't belabor the point. Our advantage is our commercial speed and proven execution. The way programs like this have been built in the past, dominated by the large defense primes, just won't work the same this time around to meet the administration's urgent timeline. It needs agility and innovation, vertical integration, and on-time delivery and execution. That's what we've delivered time and time again across our programs to date, and what we stand ready to deliver for the Golden Dome. There's no better mission on the books that demonstrates the full depth of our capabilities than the Victus Haze mission for the Space Force. Across its tactically responsive space program, we're the only provider delivering a complete end-to-end launch plus spacecraft solution. We're bringing the full stack of offerings across the satellite design, component manufacturing, integration and testing, flight software, ground, mission and launch licensing, and the launch itself, and on-orbit operations. We own the entire mission lifecycle and its capability for national security that very, very few others can provide. It's also a great demonstration of how commercial capability like ours can be leveraged to bring the concept of responsive space into operational reality, exactly what the US administration is seeking with Golden Dome. This mission has a 24-hour call-up requirement, which quite frankly is business as usual for Rocket Lab these days, and we recently cleared the program milestone for Victus Haze that moves us into the final integration and testing phase of our spacecraft for the mission, and launch on Electron later is on track later this year. Another program with a major milestone tick is our transport layer constellation build for the SDA. The program has signed off our satellite design and approach for manufacturing, which means we can now move into full-scale production of these 18 spacecraft and recognise further revenue from this $515 million program. As this constellation gets underway, we're also preparing for a much larger opportunity within the SDA and its next tranche of satellite contracts. This is where our strategy of bringing key satellite technologies in-house makes us an attractive commercial partner. Our incoming sensor payloads, for example, are also in play for an SDA award and through other bidders. We can control the cost and reduce the schedule risk through our vertical integration in a way that others can't, and we hold the keys to that technology and components that are foundational to these contracts. Excuse me. And finally, for space systems, another strategic area of focus for this past quarter has been in supporting the administration's plans for Mars exploration. It was great to see our $700 million provided for a Mars telecommunications orbiter in a Senate's recent budget. The path to Mars for human spaceflight must begin with the ability to communicate there. And this is something that we've always strongly pushed for. In fact, we were the only company that proposed an independently launched Mars telecom orbiter as part of the end-to-end Mars sample return mission. So our ambition is clearly in line with the administration's vision for Mars. Much of our technology is already across major Mars missions like NASA InSight Lander, the Ingenuity helicopter, the cruise stage that brought Perseverance to Mars, and of course our Escapade spacecraft that are ready for launch here soon. We have got the experience in delivering mission success for Mars exploration, and our vertically integrated approach reduces complexity, controls cost, and provides schedule certainty, all under a firm fixed price. Now on to Electron. Once again, another busy quarter for Electron as demand and launch cadence continues to soar. The beauty of Electron is being able to choose when and where you want to fly. Sometimes for us that can mean flying in very close succession, like the 4 launches in 4 weeks that we saw in June. And 2 of those flew just days apart, a record turnaround for us at Launch Complex 1. We've since racked up launch number 69, and number 70 is scheduled for liftoff next week, keeping us on track for 20 or more launches by this year's end. These missions are a great showcase of how quickly we can turn around launches as the manifest demands, with the infrastructure, production, and capability to place and support a launch a week as the demand for small dedicated launch continues to expand. Beyond Electron's proven heritage as America's most frequently launched small rocket, international space agencies are coming to rely on it for access to orbit as well. We signed our first direct launch contract with the European Space Agency this quarter to launch a pair of satellites for the continent's future navigation constellation before the end of this year. The mission urgency stems from ESA's need to meet spectrum requirements by early 26. But with few domestic rides to space available for them, Electron is stepping up to the task of responsive launch. It's a similar situation faced by another sovereign space agency that came calling for Electron 2. I can't quite reveal the full details of those missions yet, but it's fuel on the fire to Electron's international expansion and leadership as in the small lift market globally. Now to cap off the list of space agency launch contracts, we secured another NASA mission on Electron for launch early 2026. Time and time again, we've proven Electron to be the premier small launcher for NASA science missions, and we're looking forward to delivering the same precise orbital deployments that they've come to expect. Now on to our Neutron update for the quarter. Let's start with a top-down view of where things stand today. We're building more than just our first rocket. We're laying the foundation for long-term sustainable program. We know that from experience that building the first one is hard, but building the system that gets you to launch number 10 and 20 and beyond is much harder. Most of the capital of any rocket program goes into building out the infrastructure, and we believe we've got all the critical elements in place now. Our launch and test sites are substantially complete. Recovery infrastructure is on track. The Archimedes engine manufacturing line is now capable of knocking out an engine every 11 days. And we believe that we've scaled our operations to be ready to support to move into multiple flights a year after the first launch gets off the ground. On the launch vehicle side, the teams are working literally day and night to get Neutron to the pad. We're in a good spot with lots of core elements like the Hungry Hippo fairing, major structures, second stage, engine qualification, etc. It's a green tick for stage 2 flight hardware and its qualification program. The brains of the rocket, like the flight computer and GNC, are ready for flight, so lots of green across the vehicle as you'd expect. There's been lots of action on the regulatory approvals front as well. We've been granted our FCC license for Neutron's first launch, and the FAA has accepted our launch license application that puts us on track for a launch license to fly from Launch Complex 3 by the end of the year. We've also had the critical agreements in place to transport flight hardware to the launch site on Wallops Island. You've likely seen a bit of activity on that front around expanding our operations and dredging in the channel, but these improvements are related to increasing operational flexibility as launch cadence ramps up. It's not a gate to Neutron's debut. Importantly, the schedule is not sequential. Everything is happening in parallel, and a lot of the progress markers that are underway or still pending are probably going to stay that way up until just before we launch. There are still some risks to retire, like propulsion and full integration of stage 1 testing, which we're taking our time on to make sure we're successful, and when the rocket is on the launch pad. But over the next few slides, I'll take you through the latest engineering updates and lay out the current expectations for the next few months ahead. First up, an exciting moment on the path to launch. Neutron's flight hardware is on its way to the launch site. Over the past couple of months, we've put the second stage through many tests to validate its readiness for launch. Having completed its critical testing phase, it's headed to the Launch Complex 3 for final integration in preparation for stage testing at Wallops Island. The large structures that make up the first stage, like propellant tanks and thrust structures, are expected to be on the test stands before they're shipped out to the launch site shortly. Once they've completed in a major structural test, they'll progress into final integration and stage testing. As we move out of R&D into production for the next rockets in our fleet, our factories are all humming. We've automated the production of the largest composite rocket structures in history with our 90-ton AFP machine that we installed there last year. We're pulling flight parts off the machine now for the stage 1 barrels and propellant domes, and allows us to scale efficiently. And we've made long lead commitments for manufacturing equipment that puts us in a good place to build 3 vehicles next year. For Archimedes, engine testing is accelerating, and this is the most crucial and time-consuming aspect of any rocket development program, and always the longest pole in the tent. We're running the engine to full mission duration, and the operational test cadence is heading up to 3 or 4 hot fires a day now, 7 days a week, as we work diligently through all of the engine qualification program. In between hot fires, the team's making improvements and iterating on the design quickly, and then getting right back into the next engine test fire and on the stand. We expect these tweaks to all the way up to Neutron's debut launch and beyond. For those who are interested, take a look at the latest mission duration hot fire video we just shared. Moving on to Launch Complex 3, I'm pleased to say that we have an official date for the site opening later this month. The team in Virginia is well and truly into launch pad activation while we close out the final construction activities. The water deluge system was activated last quarter, and now the team is meticulously making their way through system by system to prepare for static fire operations on the launch mount once the flight hardware arrives. Launch Complex 3 is set to be a hugely important national asset. There's a spaceport bottleneck at the other federal sites right now, and that shows how important launch site diversity really is. National security must take priority, and with Neutron onboarded to the NSSL program earlier this year, a rocket will be the first to fly for NSSL out of Virginia when we pick up missions under that contract. We'll be cutting the ribbon for Launch Complex 3 on August the 28th. We're also opening up a limited number of spaces for retail shareholders to join us on Wallops Island. So I encourage anybody who is interested to check out the details on our website. All in all, we continue to push extremely hard for an end-of-year launch. We're continuing to run a green light schedule with Neutron, which means every single thing needs to go to plan for the schedule to hold. But I also want to stress that we're not going to rush and take stupid risks to get a launch Neutron before it's ready. In the context of the life cycle of the vehicle and the program, a couple of months here or there is completely irrelevant. What's really important is performance, reliability, scalability right from the get-go, and there'll be no cutting corners here to just rush to the pad for an arbitrary deadline. I think everybody has heard me say it before. In fact, I'm a little bit infamous for it now. I'm not built to build shit. So with that, I'll hand it off to Adam. He can run through the financial highlights for the quarter.
Great. Thanks, Pete. Second quarter 2025 revenue was a record $144.5 million, which was above the high end of our prior guidance range and reflects significant year-over-year growth of 36%, driven by strong contribution from both business segments. Second quarter revenue increased 17.9% sequentially. Our Space Systems segment delivered $97.9 million in the quarter, reflecting a sequential increase of 12.5%, driven by increased contribution from each of our satellite components businesses. Our Launch Services segment delivered revenue of $36.6 million, reflecting an increase of 31.1% quarter on quarter. Now turning to gross margin. GAAP gross margin for the second quarter was 32.1%, above our prior guidance range of 30 to 32%. Non-GAAP gross margin for the second quarter was 36.9%, which was also above our guidance range of 34 to 36%. The sequential increase in gross margins is primarily due to an increase in Electron ASP, paired with favorable mix within our Space Systems business, driven by increased contribution from our higher margin component sales. Relatedly, we ended Q2 with production-related headcount of 1,150, up 62 from the prior quarter. Turning to backlog, we ended Q2 2025 with approximately $1 billion in total backlog, with launch backlog representing approximately 41% of this and Space Systems 59%. In the quarter, launch backlog continued to take increasing share with promising underlying trends as we convert a very strong pipeline of Neutron, Electron, and Haze opportunities. Space Systems bookings remain lumpy given the timing of increasingly larger needle-moving customer and program opportunities, but remains at a healthy level despite a step-up in revenue run rate for the past few quarters. Upon the anticipated near-term closing of the Geost acquisition, and given an increased line of sight to the Mynaric acquisition closing, the composition of backlog will likely skew a bit back in favor of Space Systems and further underpin incremental future growth. We continue to cultivate a healthy pipeline, including multi-launch deals and large satellite manufacturing contracts that, as mentioned earlier, can create lumpiness in backlog growth given the size and complexity of these opportunities. We expect approximately 58% of current backlog to be recognized as revenues within 12 months, and we continue to get relatively quick turns business that drive top-line growth beyond the current 12-month backlog conversion. Turning to operating expenses. GAAP operating expenses for the second quarter of 2025 were $106 million, above our guidance range of $96 to $98 million. Non-GAAP operating expenses for the first quarter were $86.9 million, which was also above our guidance range of $82 to $84 million. The sequential increases in both GAAP and non-GAAP operating expenses were primarily driven by continued growth in prototype and headcount-related spending to support our Neutron development program. Specifically, investment has increased to support propulsion as we continue to qualify Archimedes, as well as production of mechanical and composite structures ahead of Neutron's anticipated inaugural flight later this year. In R&D specifically, GAAP expenses increased $11 million quarter on quarter due to ramping up Archimedes production, paired with increased expenses related to mechanical systems and composites, as just mentioned. Non-GAAP R&D expenses were up $10.2 million quarter on quarter, driven similarly to the GAAP expenses. Q2 ending R&D headcount was 935, representing an increase of 12 from the prior quarter. In SG&A, GAAP expenses increased $600,000 quarter-on-quarter due to an increase in non-recurring transaction costs as we continue to advance a robust pipeline of M&A opportunities, partially offset by a step down in stock-based compensation in the quarter. Non-GAAP SG&A expenses decreased by $200,000 due primarily to a decrease in audit fees, partially offset by increased legal expenses. We are encouraged by our ability to constrain SG&A spending as we look to scale the business more efficiently at this point. Q2 ending SG&A headcount was 343, representing an increase of 11 from the prior quarter. In summary, total second quarter headcount was 2,428, up 85 heads from the prior quarter. Turning to cash. Purchases of property, equipment, and capitalized software licenses were $32 million in the second quarter of 2025, an increase of $3.3 million from the $28.7 million in the first quarter, as we finalize LC3 construction activities, continue to invest in the engine test facility at Stennis, Mississippi, and make initial investments into the fit-out of the return on investment barge. As we continue to invest in Neutron development, testing, and scaling production, we expect to maintain elevated capital expenditures leading up to Neutron's first flight. GAAP operating cash flow was a negative $23.2 million in the second quarter of 2025, compared to a negative $54.2 million in the first quarter. The sequential decline in negative GAAP operating cash flow of $31 million was driven primarily by increased cash receipts from our SDA satellite program. Similar to the CapEx dynamics mentioned earlier, cash consumption will continue to be elevated due to Neutron development, longer lead procurement for SDA, investment in subsequent Neutron tail production, and related infrastructure to scale the business beyond our initial test flight. Overall, non-GAAP free cash flow, defined as GAAP operating cash flow less purchases of property, equipment, and capitalized software in the second quarter of 2025, was a use of $55.3 million, compared to a use of $82.9 million in the first quarter. The ending balance of cash equivalents, restricted cash, and marketable securities was $754 million as of the end of the second quarter of 2025. The sequential increase in liquidity is due to the at-the-market equity offering that we announced earlier in the year, which generated $300.8 million in the second quarter, which in part is intended to fund acquisitions such as the announced Mynaric acquisition, the Geost acquisition, and other targets in a robust M&A pipeline, along with general corporate expenditures and working capital. We exited Q2 in a strong position to execute on our organic expansion opportunities, as well as inorganic options to further vertically integrate our supply chain and grow our strategic capabilities and expand our addressable market, consistent with what we have done successfully in the past. Adjusted EBITDA loss was $27.6 million in the second quarter of 2025, better than our guidance range of a $28 to $30 million loss. The sequential decrease of $2.4 million of adjusted EBITDA loss was driven by an increase in revenue, paired with increased gross margin, partially offset by increased R&D expenses related to Neutron. With that, let's turn to our guidance for the third quarter of 2025. We expect revenue in the third quarter to range between $145 and $155 million. We expect a further uptick in both GAAP and non-GAAP gross margins in the third quarter, with GAAP gross margin to range between 35 to 37% and non-GAAP gross margin to range between 39 to 41%. These forecasted GAAP and non-GAAP gross margins reflect improvement in launch ASP and overhead absorption. We expect third quarter GAAP operating expenses to range between $104 and $109 million, and non-GAAP operating expenses to range between $86 million and $91 million. These modest quarter-on-quarter increases at the midpoint of our guidance are to be driven primarily by continued Neutron development, spending across staff costs, prototyping, and materials, though the spend is beginning to shift from R&D to Flight 2 inventory. I'm encouraged, given the impressive progress made towards Neutron's first flight, that we're getting closer to moving beyond the past few years of elevated R&D spend and on the path to generating future meaningful operating leverage and positive cash flow. We expect third quarter GAAP and non-GAAP net interest expense to be $1.3 million. We expect third quarter adjusted EBITDA loss to range between $21 and $23 million, and basic weighted average common shares outstanding to be approximately 528 million shares, which includes convertible preferred shares of approximately 46 million. Lastly, consistent with last quarter, we believe negative non-GAAP free cash flow in the third quarter will remain at an elevated level, consistent with the prior couple of quarters, excluding any potential offsetting effects of financing under our existing equipment facility. And with that, we'll hand the call over to the operator for questions.
Thank you. We will now begin the question and answer session. To ask a question, you may press star then one on your telephone keypad. If you are using a speakerphone, please pick up your handset before pressing the keys. To withdraw your question, please press star then two. At this time, we will pause momentarily to assemble our roster. And today's first question comes from Michael Leshock with KeyBanc Capital Markets. Please proceed.
Hey, good afternoon. Wanted to ask on Neutron and specifically the Archimedes engine. I appreciate all the commentary there and around the hot fire tests. Where does Archimedes stand today in terms of performance? Are there any other performance metrics that you could share from what you're seeing in those tests? And, how is there a way to frame it, how close you are relative to what is required for performance to power a Neutron flight?
Yeah, hey Michael. Yep. From a performance perspective, we're very happy. One of the unique things about a reusable launch vehicle is you have a tremendous number of different environments that the engine has to start and operate in. So normally you have an ascent profile where there's a couple of throttle points, and especially on a stage one, and it's a fairly simple thing. But of course we have a re-entry burn and a landing burn. You have to start the engine at different propellant temperatures, different head pressures, and all these kinds of things. So it creates a much enlarged run box or set of conditions that you have to be able to operate the engine in. It's much more challenging to do. But from a basic performance, of the engine, we're very happy where it is. It's like I say, it's just a much more complicated qualification program to get through because you're qualifying ascent and descent at the same time.
Great. And then shifting to a longer term question. You've talked about a satellite constellation potentially being a long-term opportunity for the company. How close are you to begin working on a constellation of your own? We saw the release of Flatellite earlier this year and the focus of it designed to scale. Is a Rocket Lab constellation something that is being developed or talked about today? Or is it more likely a longer term opportunity, maybe 5 or more years down the road? Thanks.
Yeah, sure. So we've always, as you point out, we've always made our ambitions clear here, and we think that is the power of being an end-to-end space company, is when you have the ability to build whatever satellite you need and launch it at will. It's a very powerful position to be in. However, I'm also very aware of entrepreneurial drift, where someone doesn't finish one thing before they start the next. And while we've been methodically building all of the capabilities and vertically integrating all the satellite components and whatnot we need to be able to do exactly what we want to do, until Neutron is finished and flying, that's the key element of being able to deploy a disruptive infrastructure of satellites. So I wouldn't expect any huge announcements from us on constellations until the big piece of the puzzle, which is Neutron, starts to absorb less of our focus.
Great. Appreciate all the detail. Thank you, guys.
And our next question is from Eric Rasmussen with Stifel. Please proceed.
Yeah, thanks for taking the questions, and great to hear all the progress. And I'm happy to hear the noise around the dredging. Seems like there's not really an issue in the near term of getting to your schedule. Just wanted to ask about backlog, and I think a lot of this is contingent upon the SDA right now. I know you've also talked about the Golden Dome, but it looks like Tranche 3. Maybe just if you could just update us on what your thinking is around potential timing around the RFP process, where Rocket Lab will compete, and at what, and I guess in the vein of sort of the backlog, at what point will you start to include Neutron into the backlog?
Hey, Eric, I'll answer some of those, and I'll let Adam answer some as well. But more generally in backlog, the kind of things that we're chasing now are really large programs. So by nature, these programs are pretty lumpy. SDA is a great example. I think we've put ourselves in a very strong position. We're executing against our current SDA contract very strongly. You've seen us acquire things like GEOS that put us in a very strong position to provide solutions that are not plagued by delays and things like that. And also our recent pending acquisitions of things like Monaric, which are one of the key elements in the SDA program. So I believe the timing of the announcement is somewhere between September and October for the Tranche 3. It's always a little bit opaque as they work as the SDA works through those awards, but that's sort of a similar time frame. But at any one point, we're working very large proposals, both government and commercial, and just by their very nature, they take a little bit longer to solidify. But I'll let Adam, maybe if you've got any comments on backlog.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it right. I think, look, we've got diversity in the things that we're chasing. It's easy to focus on something like SDA Tranche 3 because it's kind of a big shiny object that a lot of people are actually chasing. But we've got a lot of diversity in the things that we're going after. And to your question on Neutron's influence on backlog, we do have 3 missions of Neutron in the backlog today. Those were added over the last few quarters, and I would say that of course we expect after a successful flight of Neutron that will start to gain a lot more momentum, because as you can imagine, launch customers are they're betting a lot when they choose a launch vehicle. And it's a long-term choice, and there are limited choices out there today. So everyone's being very careful about what they do. So we do expect that demand to be kind of unleashed, if you will, once we have a successful test launch. I would say that if you look across all of our businesses, and then again, we're starting to see the diversity benefits, where if you look at the opportunities we're chasing across our subsystems business, across Electron, both commercial, government, HASTE variants, we're seeing strong demand across all of them. So it's just a matter of kind of converging it. And if you look at the trend of backlog over the last year, actually launch has been the bright spot, right? We had a huge step up when we put the SDA Tranche 2 award into backlog, and then basically we've been working against that as we recognize some of that revenue, and then launches continue to build in the backlog, and that's going to continue to be, we believe, to be the case once Neutron kind of gets past that next big milestone or achievement of initial launch.
Great. Maybe just sticking with launch and Electron, you already did 11. Sounds like you have the 12th one coming up pretty soon, your 70th launch. What would you say the mix between your traditional Electron launches and maybe HASTE missions in the back half of the year? What does that look like?
Yeah, so if you look in our backlog right now, if you look at the mix, we're expecting about I think it's 3 of the remaining launches this year will be HASTE missions. So as Pete talked about, we're on path to do at least 20, hopefully more than 20 launches this year, which will be nice growth off 2024. And so we haven't had any HASTE launches yet this year. So we're looking at roughly 3 launches, and all of them in the back half of the year.
Great. Maybe just my final, it's on Neutron, and I'm just trying to sort of parse through some of the words that Peter had mentioned in terms of cadence. I think previously we were expecting, the first test launch, so you have more of the 1-3-5 launch cadence for the first few years. But given the strong demand signals ensured a launch, and then maybe just, if I'm reading right, is it possible that that's something you can accelerate, or what does that look like? Are we still sort of targeting that 1-3-5? Thank you.
Yeah, Eric. I mean, I get ridden every day on that question. The reality is, it just takes time to roll in the learnings between flights. We proved with Electron that was the right kind of scale up cadence. And if you look historically across rocket programs, it's even pretty aggressive. So we'll stick with that 135. And look, who knows? But at the moment, from where we are in the program, that feels like the right kind of place to target everything.
Thanks. Good luck.
And the next question is from Andre Shepard with Credit Suisse. Please proceed.
Hey guys, Andres here from Cantor Fitzgerald. I'm not sure what that was. Hey Pete, hey Adam, and hey Patrick. Congrats on the quarter and all the great success. I'll limit myself to 2 questions just to be respectful to all the other analysts. Maybe one on space systems and one on launch systems. On the space systems, Adam, I'm wondering if you can maybe remind us kind of what does the revenue recognition look like for the SDA Tranche 2 award, both for this year and for next year? And I know you mentioned obviously you're exploring several opportunities, but just to come back to SDA Tranche 3, if I'm not mistaken, right, that could potentially be the largest contract in company history. And so how would you characterize maybe the likelihood of success there? Thank you.
Yeah, I can comment on kind of the rev rec, generally for the SDA program Tranche 2 transport layer that we have that we're executing against. So, these programs typically, the award was, I believe, in late 2023, and so you typically when the program kicks off, you're doing a lot of the kind of initial finalizing the design and so forth. So where you really experience the meat of the revenue recognition is when you're actually starting to take possession of the bill of materials to build the satellites with. So right now, as Pete mentioned, that's where we're kind of getting in now to that sweet spot where we're going full scale production of those vehicles. So we're going to see a ramp in spending and a ramp in rev rec resultantly from that. I think that you should expect that revenue will be pretty, I would say, evenly balanced between the second and the third year of the program, with 2025 being the second year in reality, and next year is kind of the third year, and then it'll tail off. So you have kind of tails on either end, with most of the revenue recognition in 25 and 26. I mean, just if you want to just think broad strokes, for contribution in 2025, it's probably, if you want to think in the order of kind of 150 to 200 million is the right range to be in. And then again, that should look somewhat similar in 2026, assuming that we continue to execute like we have. And then if you look at SDA Tranche 3 tracking, should we be fortunate enough to win that program, as you said, it would be the biggest program by a significant margin that the company has earned to date. And it would have a similar profile. I mean, there's a chance that there could be some revenue recognized early in the program, even as early as some of it later this year. And then you'd have kind of the buildup, where 2026 would look for that program would look probably like 2024-ish looked for SDA. And then you'll have that again, probably 80% of the revenue being recognized within the middle 2 years of the 4-year program. So that's probably the best guidance I can give to you right now on that.
Got it. That's super helpful. Thanks, Adam. And just maybe a quick follow-up, if I may, maybe one for Pete on the launch systems. As we're getting closer and closer to Neutron, I'm curious if you're seeing perhaps an uptick from customer demand or prospective customer demand for future flights. Obviously, you have the track record, the heritage from the Electron and Haze, Neutron still coming out. But given the what do we want to call it, the conflicts between the administration and SpaceX management team, just curious if you've seen perhaps an uptick in interest for Neutron, for future Neutron missions, and any color there, since Neutron essentially will be the only viable alternative to the Falcon 9, right? So just curious on what you're seeing. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andre. Well, I mean, look, I think it's the market does need a competitor to the Falcon 9. I think that was very clear, and that was presented to us both from our commercial customers and our government customers. So, there's a lot of anticipation and pent-up demand for that vehicle to come to market, and that continues to increase all the time, not just from sort of political events or geopolitical events, but also from just large programs being added, things like the Golden Dome. I mean, that is going to be one of the largest DoD programs in the country's history, and they're all spacecraft in space, and they all need to get there. So, we're seeing growing demand and also I think it's fair to say realization that sorting out from the real players from the players that are less likely to be able to provide.
Excellent. Thank you so much, both. Congrats again on the quarter. I'll pass it on.
The next question is from Ron Epstein with Bank of America. Please proceed.
Yeah. Hey, good afternoon, guys. So Pete, just maybe broadly, when we think about the first launch of Neutron, for you, I mean, just to kind of level set, what would a successful launch be?
Yeah, hey Ron. Well, you're not going to hear some rubbish about just clearing the pad as a success. That is not. For us, a successful launch of Electron will be a success. Successfully getting to orbit and making sure the vehicle is ready to scale. I think you saw us come out of the gate with Electron, going to orbit, and then straight away, 3 missions after that, successfully delivering customers to orbit. So that will be the definitions of success. The bit that we'll be a little bit more flexible on is obviously the re-entry and soft landing of the first vehicle. There's a lot to learn there. We think we've got a good head start, but that's the bit that is always requires a bit of iteration. So, like I say, we'll declare success when we're in orbit. If we don't soft splash down on the first flight, I think there's a little bit of tolerance there for learning. But apart from that,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. And then Adam, maybe what drove the strong Electron ASP in the quarter, and is that a reasonable way to think about Electron pricing going forward?
Well, we've been there's a few things to drive that, but probably the most, I would say, dominant force would be the mix of haste in the manifest. So as we've talked about, the haste missions require very unique, I'd say mission assurance and other things. The vehicles are unique and so forth. So that makes sense that the ASP would be significantly higher, but it's really driven primarily by that. I'd say overall, if you look at, commercial haste, commercial electrons, those have been trending up nicely as well. So we benefited from the fact that we've got customers coming back and they're doing bulk buys of electrons and they're significantly higher ASPs than we've seen in the past. If you were to rewind the clock 2 or 3 years ago, we would get customers coming that wanted to buy bulk buys, but they were wanting a significant discount to do that. And so in order for us to build the manifest and be able to kind of continue to drive the market, we did that. And I think now we're in a position where we really don't have to accept any significant discounts, and we're getting bulk buys. And I think part of the strength as well is we're getting a lot of support, as Pete mentioned in his comments, from the international community. Sovereign countries are coming forward with strong demand, and I think that it's a testament to the fact that execution in this market is so difficult. A lot of people can talk about it, they can put spec sheets on web pages and whatever else, and payload user guides, but at the end of the day, we're the only one that has had 69 launches of a small dedicated launcher, and I think right now we're benefiting from all of that hard work and execution. And so we really don't have the distraction of people kind of doing some false pricing in the market to put pressure. I mean, now it's pretty clear that execution is key, and you got to pay for execution.
Gotcha. And then that's actually a nice segue into my last question. When we think about the Monarch acquisition and Electron adding the European Space Agency, what do you see as potential? Is there a potential European national security opportunity for you guys in space?
Yeah, Ron, I think if you look outside the US, what is the next biggest market in space? And it's Europe, and you'd be a fool not to be in there. So Monarch is a kind of stepping point in, and as you've seen obviously, as you point out, the European Space Agency contracts, we'll continue to expand into Europe, and we have a lot of unique capabilities that only reside with us. So we'll look to apply those.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
Our next question comes from Edison Yu with Deutsche Bank. Please proceed.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for taking our questions. Wanted to ask, I think probably for Pete, your latest thoughts on orbital transfer vehicles, space tugs. I know there was a bit of a craze several years back in LEO that kind of flamed out a bit, but now it seems there's a lot of offerings coming to market, maybe trying to go farther away, bigger. And so is that an area of interest to you? I know you have the kick stage, but would you try to kind of tackle that more directly or more broadly going forward?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've never really understood the business opportunity and the business case for those, because you start off with a relatively cheap rideshare and you end up with a really expensive delivery. So as you point out, they've had a couple of starts. So look, if it turns into being a real market, it's completely elementary for us to go after it. I mean, we operate a kick stage on the top of Electron essentially, and all the components to be able to do it, we have. So if it turns out to be a real market and a real opportunity, the time that it would take us to deliver a product to market would be extremely short. But at the moment, I just don't see it worth us investing in.
Understood. And then on Electron, wanted to ask about the TAM, and in the context of, I have this big slide obviously on Golden Dome, hypersonics. Historically, I think the TAM maybe 30 plus launches. Do we think that the TAM now for Electron could be, much bigger than that, like 50, 60 launches going forward, or at some point in the future?
Well, you're talking to a conservative engineer by nature, Edison. So it's hard for me to get too bullish. But if you just look at some of the programs like the Golden Dome, the amount of testing that's going to require, and the amount of suborbital kind of hypersonic missile simulants that you're going to need to deploy to be able to validate that system, there's a pretty significant number there that would be required. So in HASTE alone, I think we're expecting that to continue to grow. But year upon year, the TAM continues to grow, and the exciting thing is that Electron is helping to create and open up that TAM. We see a lot of satellites these days that are made specifically to just fit on Electron, envelope its environment, and it's enabling a lot of stuff. So I think we continue to see the TAM expand, and I think I don't see any sign of that decreasing in the future.
Great. If I could just sneak one housekeeping one on GEOS. Any color on how much revenue that could potentially bring in after it closes, and what kind of growth profile or backlog that has going forward? Thanks.
Yeah, I'll take that one. Look, as we can't really say too much about it. It's still a pending acquisition. As Pete mentioned, we got through the antitrust review, which is great. I think close should be imminent, but we'll hold back any comments on color in that business until we actually own it, if you don't mind.
Totally understood. Thank you.
The next question is from Jeff Van Rhee with Craig-Hallum. Please proceed.
Great. Thanks for taking the questions. I guess, Peter, on space systems, when you kind of flesh it out in your mind what you envision space systems ultimately being, what % of the way to your vision are we in terms of the capabilities that segment currently has?
Yeah, Jeff, great question. So the toolbox is looking pretty full, actually. So from purely like a nuts and bolts component level, the Monarch optical terminals are an important one, and the vast majority of stuff is kind of come into focus. We'll see us spend a lot more time now is on payloads, and GEOS was the first kind of beginning to that, and that really shifts you from being able to provide just a satellite bus to be able to provide a complete thing. So yeah, the nuts and bolts, I'd say we're largely done. There'll still be little add-ons we'll want to do, but our focus will be on payloads and really rounding out the system.
Yep. Helpful. And Adam, on the margins as it relates to space systems, just correct me if I'm wrong. I think 40% was the target there. You've made some really good progress. Is 40 still the right number, and any sense of a timeline or sense of scope that it might take to get to that 40%?
Yeah, there's a pretty wide mix, I would say, of margin profiles within our space systems business. If you think about the margins on putting together a full turnkey, platform solution, they tend to be lower. If you think about those margins, kind of, if you want to think about a ranges in the 20s to 30s, but they have good scale with them because of the size of the contracts that are involved. And actually, those are much better margins than most other people would expect to achieve, and that's because we're so vertically integrated. Now, when you look at the subsystems, we also have a very wide range there. We have some products where the margins are in the 20s, but we have some where margins are well north of 60 points. So if you look at blended average, for, I would say, the overall space systems between the weighting, and right now it's kind of split evenly between subsystems and platforms. And as we start to mix in applications, it'll get even, it'll get different in a good way. You should think about 40%. We're not that far actually from that target. So I think our target was probably set a little bit on the modest side. So, but if you think of 40 to 45 points, kind of as the real target for margins, I think that's probably a pretty good place to be. And that can be pretty good, as far as contribution to the bottom line, because there's not a lot of R&D that goes into those businesses, right? A lot of it's customer funded R&D. So when you look at the contribution margin, it's very, very healthy. So again, I think that, yeah, we set the bar. We like to kind of set expectations low and kind of over deliver to those. And I think that we're on the path to do the same thing with our space systems business when it comes to margins.
Yep, very helpful. Maybe last for me on Peter, you mentioned production, and I missed a little bit of it, but on Neutron, obviously you're spending a lot of time building, scale manufacturing capabilities. Just where are you in terms of Neutrons now, in terms of how many are you initially building, and what is the manufacturing capacity that you're putting up, to give us a glimpse in terms of how you're thinking in number of ships, this year, next year, year after?
Yeah, sure. So, some areas are at a high production rate, like, engines, we're pushing for 11, one engine every 11 days. And it's kind of, because it's a reusable launch vehicle program, the whole production cycle is literally turned upside down. So we need the most number of vehicles in production at the start of the program, rather than ramping and scaling as you go along. So, as we talked about, there's multiple vehicles that we're building even now, and a stage one can be reused 10, 20 times. So, you're not actually every year you're not building that many stage ones. So the most amount of stage ones we'll ever build is probably year 2 or 3. Of course, the stage 2 is expendable, but that's been highly refined for a very very quick production and low cost rate. So yeah, I mean, as I said before, sort of 3 stage ones is next year is the right way to think about it.
3 stage ones, got it. Okay, thanks so much.
Our next question is from Andre Madrid with BTIG. Please proceed.
Hey, this is Ned Morgan on for Andre today. Thank you for taking the question. I was just wondering, I've seen a lot of partnerships lately in support of Golden Dome, and I was just wondering if you guys are looking at doing something similar as opposed to doing any M&A.
Yeah, it's a good question, Ned. The reality is that we're very, very vertically integrated, and there's still obviously pieces of technology that we partner with, as we've shown on the SDA program. But I guess there's probably slightly less of a need for us to, given our vertical integration and just the breadth of stuff that we've got. We don't need to partner with that many people to deliver a solution.
Okay, makes sense. And then maybe one more for me. Regarding Tranche 3, how different would the upside look if you guys are selected as a prime versus a sub through, for example, GEOST?
How do you mean the upside, Ned? What do you mean by that?
If you guys are selected as a prime, I would imagine revenue contribution would be significantly more than as a sub through GEOST prior bid. So I was just wondering how things would look if they went there.
I can take that one. Yeah, I can take that, Pete.
Yeah.
Basically, if you look at the value of the subsystem that GEOST provides, you can think of that as being, kind of somewhere around 30% of the total platform value is in the payload. So obviously, it's a much bigger opportunity as the prime than it's just as the sub for a subsystem. Now there is the opportunity where you could have a Goldilocks situation where you're selected as the prime, but also GEOST was bidding with other primes as well for that opportunity. So there's a range of outcomes there, but yeah, certainly our goal here is to select as a prime.
Got it. Thank you very much.
End of conference call. They're waiting for you, Matt.
I guess so.
The next question will come from Christine Liwag of Morgan Stanley. Please go ahead.
To the operator.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Peter, you've been very clear about your disciplined approach to pricing regarding Neutron. And considering the tightness of supply of launch, I'm a little surprised that you still haven't built out a sizable backlog for the program. Can you provide more color on how advanced your discussions are with incremental customers for Neutron, what they're waiting for to commit to an order, and how to think about the competitive landscape, especially as you've got a competitor rocket coming into market that's fairly well capitalized too?
Yeah, hey, Christine. Well, I mean, you can split this into both into commercial and government. I mean, we were onboarded onto the NSSL program, which obviously is a extremely large opportunities, 5.6 billion, if I remember. And then on the commercial side, we've talked about this before, where they want to see a rocket that works before they commit, because a lot of people have been burnt signing on vehicles that either delayed or even in some cases never turned up. And we've always talked about it as well, is we want to make sure that when we sign one of these customers that consume a large amount of our manifest, that they actually turn up on time and all the rest of it. So we maintain that discipline going through. It does nobody any good to fill up a whole bunch of manifests with a bunch of launches that or a bunch of payloads that don't turn up in time, and you're kind of left holding the bag. So the most important thing, I think, for everybody is we get to the pad and we start launching, and then we'll make the decision who are the best customers and most reliable customers for us, and the customers will make the same decision back. And in competition, I think I'm not sure I quite view that the same way.
Thanks, Peter. And Adam, as a follow-up, you mentioned expectations for elevated cash consumption beyond Neutron's first flight as you scale up. How should we think about the capital intensity following this initial launch? And should we still expect 2026 to be a positive free cash flow year?
Yeah, look, I think the cash consumption will continue after the first launch, because as Pete mentioned, we're building the subsequent tails. And so if you think about the cost to build a booster, and I think we've kind of used this, we've communicated this term or this figure before, but you assume around $60 million for a booster, and you're building several of them in series, or in parallel in some cases here. You could consume additional capital from that. The key thing for us is getting through that first test flight. We've gotten to the point where we've gotten the infrastructure largely in place. We do have some incremental scaling investments that need to be made, such as this return on investment barge that we've talked about. So yeah, I mean, I think the business could continue to consume money through 2026. So I would say more realistically for, I would say, positive free cash flow 2026, again, given how aggressively we're moving forward, given the demand signal that we're getting, I think that's probably not likely. I think it's much more likely to be in 2027. But it depends. We could come across opportunities that generate enough offsetting incoming cash flow that it kind of balances that out. But right now, I'd say you should think of Neutron as being continued to, even in success scenario, in particular in a success scenario, continuing to consume cash as we kind of build out that capability and put all the other scaling infrastructure in place.
Great. Thanks for the color.
Yeah, I think it's important, Christine, to differentiate though that I believe that the P&L will obviously look much better once we get through the initial kind of successful test launch of Neutron. So I think it's important to separate the kind of the free cash flow from the P&L optics, right? Because I think the P&L does get much friendlier much sooner. And then I think like a lot of other growth businesses, we're going to be continuing to invest to grow, but the P&L should start to look much more attractive. And I think that's we're keeping our eye on both, obviously.
Great. And as a follow-up to that, I mean, look, it's a good problem to have if you have a product that works and if you can scale up very quickly. Those are all good problems to have as a growth company. But when we think about the capital size that you might need, if you can build like in a bull case scenario, how much capital could you potentially consume of free cash flow in 2026? And when you think about the cash balance today, is that enough? Or would you need to raise capital to meet the demand should you be really successful and have that bull case scenario play out?
Yeah, look, I think we have sufficient capital to scale Neutron. So really, if you look at when we're raising additional capital, it's really not for Neutron. It's really all about doing things like the Monarch and Geos and other things that we have in our funnel. Yes, we could put a lot of money to work to kind of respond to the demand signal as it evolves for Neutron that could continue to demand cash. But I don't see it outstripping kind of even what we have today. So again, I think that you're right. It's a good problem to have. I don't think that any liquidity constraints would be driven by Neutron. I think it would really be driven by how aggressively we want to go after and enable inorganic TAM expanding type of opportunities.
Great. I'm tempted to ask one more, so I just might. So when you look at that opportunity, I mean, it seems like the capital markets are fairly open. Your stocks at record high levels. How aggressive do you want to accelerate some of those growth TAM opportunities, and where are those verticals? Where are you most interested in? What does that look like?
Yeah, I'll let Pete comment obviously on as well. But I would say, look, we continue to see opportunities to further vertically integrate our supply chain. So we've done that very successfully in the past. We'll continue to find those types of opportunities. I would say that when you look at the ultimate end-to-end vision, obviously has applications elements to it, which is Pete talked about some of that earlier. But I would say right now it's probably too early to show a lot of leg on kind of where we're going there. Because as Pete said, given the focus and the risk of entrepreneurial drift, we're very, very, very focused on getting Neutron delivered, establishing very key fundamental and foundational payload capabilities, and then the rest is to be kind of put into focus a little bit later. But Pete, I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, no, you said it. You said it very well, Adam. I mean, Christine, we're not finished yet. That's for sure on M&A opportunities.
Great, thank you.
The next question is from Ryan Koontz with Needham & Company. Please proceed.
Great, thanks. Most of my questions have been answered, but I'll touch on Space Systems a bit. Nice progress on gross margins, obviously. I know you had acquired the solar business and some backlog there that was lower margin. How do you think about that business going forward? and have the margins in that business now kind of normalized with new contracts and such that make you comfortable with the trajectory and continuing to see some uplift on space systems? Thanks.
Well, I can take part of the tactics on that one real quickly. So if you actually look at the progress on gross margin for the Solero business, first and foremost, has been very, very strong. When we acquired that business, we were looking at high single-digit gross margins, and in the first half of 2025, we delivered margins that were above the long-term target that we'd set for that business. We'd set a target of 30%. That business is subject to the margin volatility, is subject to kind of where some of that early contract, which still hasn't completely kind of flowed its way through the books yet, that there's still some to be delivered on that. And so it's the timing of when that kind of comes in and out of deliveries. But I would say, look, if you just kind of look at where we'll be for the year, we're going to be pretty much spot on our long-term target of 30%. And I think longer term, there's upside to that. And I think more importantly, that acquisition has really kind of fulfilled its strategic import of, kind of really taking control of a very critical and tricky component in the supply chain for being a long-term kind of system provider and owner. So I think on that front, hopefully that gives you some color. And then, I think maybe Pete, you can speak to maybe the types of opportunities that we see in that business going forward and kind of where you expect margins to land for those.
Yeah, no, thanks, Adam. Yeah, so we continue to expand capability in that business. Obviously, you would have seen that we were successful with some CHIPS money, which has enabled us to completely modernize, or will enable us to completely modernize the reactor fleet in there, and that drives in itself efficiencies. But if you look at programs like the Golden Dome, there is an unprecedented amount of spacecraft and power that's needed to fulfill that. And there's 3 space grade suppliers in the world, and we're currently one of the largest, if not the largest. So I see a lot of exciting opportunities for that business going forward. I mean, we are one of the preeminent providers for national security solar, so that's a pretty exciting future.
That's great. Thanks so much, Pete.
Our next question is from Suji DeSilva with Roth Capital. Please proceed.
Hi, Pete. Hi, Adam. Adam, can you just remind us or tell us how the Neutron cost will flow, maybe from OpEx to COGS, as the first launch goes, and whether that might be material to the gross margin, so we could anticipate that as these first few launches go off?
Yeah, that's going to be a really challenging thing to model for you guys. I think that, and that's a function of the fact that the first, the test flight, of course, all of that's flowing through R&D, right? And now we're actually starting to, for the subsequent tails, that's now going to flow through cost of goods sold with revenue cover associated with it. So the P&L is going to fluctuate quite a bit, to the positive, as I mentioned to an earlier question. Now, when you start talking about the reusability and what that introduces to the volatility to margins, you can imagine that as we progress through, it was quote unquote hardening Neutron's reusability, how many reuses will, for example, we'll be able to assume for amortizing over, the kind of future missions. That's going to be a great influencer over gross margin. So you can imagine if the rocket is only kind of assumed initially to do X number of reuses, but it actually surpasses that or comes in underneath that, you're going to have a lot of volatility, because you got to have a situation where you have a fully amortized booster with all the revenue going forward on it, or you could have made assumptions where you expect to fly a certain number of times and it under kind of achieves to that. And so you have a lot of, incremental costs for future missions that weren't assumed. So it's going to be a tough one to manage. I think that, the only thing that we can really point to, and it's a bit different because it wasn't designed to be reusable from the outset, was Electron. And we've been able to bring down Electron costs dramatically, right? And that's without reusability. So, we have a track record of successfully kind of scaling and bringing down costs. As we've talked about many, many times, another big influencer to gross margins is overhead absorption. So, I suspect that Neutron will be a little bit different, but not fundamentally different from the fact that what's going to drive its gross margins is going to be cadence, right? So it's reuse and cadence, but cadence is something that We understand how that works with Electron, the huge benefits you get when you get the cadence up, and that's going to be a large driving factor for Neutron as well. Again, also coupled with our success in getting this vehicle to be reusable as quickly as possible and for as long as possible.
Okay, great, Adam. I'll get my quantum computer out. And the other question I have is on payloads. Is Geos kind of your entree here, or do you have efforts in-house for payloads as well as this inorganic effort, or will that segment be grown through our inorganic exclusively? Thanks.
Yeah, so Jed, so a little bit of both. The reality is that often these payloads, especially when you're looking to bring solutions to bear in national security, have very, very long development cycles and a lot of heritage associated with them, which kind of naturally lends itself to acquisition more than organic creation. But there's certainly some elements of payloads internally that we're looking at that we will just go under our own steam, and then some things like Geos, best in class. It would take decades to recreate that. So an acquisition is by far the most efficient way of opening that opportunity up.
Okay, helpful color. Thanks, Pete. Thanks, guys.
And the next question is from Anthony Valentini with Goldman Sachs. Please proceed.
Hey guys, thanks for the question. I'm just curious if, I recognize you guys are, laser focused on Neutron here, but is there any reason to think that, you guys would introduce a new launch vehicle in the future that is either larger than Neutron or maybe even in between Electron and Neutron in terms of the capacity that it can take into orbit?
Yeah, good question, Anthony. So certainly not. We don't really believe there's really a market between the Electron and Neutron side. It's a very limited opportunity in that range. Now, if we need to go larger, I guess the good news is that the vehicle is very scalable. It's a 7-meter diameter stage 1 tank, so it's a very short, dumpy vehicle. So typically that's what governs your ability to increase the vehicle size is your tank diameter. Otherwise, you end up with big, long, skinny pencils, and that becomes challenging. So we have no intentions at this point in time. We think we've got the market accurately sized, and we've proven historically that we're not bad at making those kind of calls. But if for whatever reason the market drastically moved to a larger scale, we have a vehicle architecture that is very easy to scale.
Great, thank you.
And at this time, we are showing no further questioners in the queue, and this does conclude our question and answer session. I would now like to turn the conference back over to Peter Beck for any closing remarks.
Yeah, thanks very much, operator. So before we close out today, should be some slide here of our upcoming events and conferences that the team will be attending. We look forward to sharing more exciting news and updates with you there. And otherwise, thanks for joining us. That wraps up today's call, and we look forward to speaking with you all again about the exciting progress that we make here at Rocket Lab. Thanks very much.
Thank you for attending today's presentation. You may now disconnect your lines and have a pleasant day.
What did you guys think?
I was pretty surprised by the last question that gentleman asked about. I mean, I'd heard it before, but I'm now starting to think about it as I know that Archimedes isn't necessarily at full capacity in terms of how much it's being used. So I guess my question is when they say stretched, do they mean that they would just create kind of a custom stage 1, potentially custom stage 2 that they would be able to potentially use, and then just use an Archimedes engine and just ramp up the amount of thrust? Because last I checked, the thrust that they use is not the full capacity thrust, right? It's kind of So I don't know.
20% or something. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
That was very interesting. I mean, the analysts, they actually had good questions this time around. I was very surprised.
Better than in the past. Better than in the
Yeah,
past.
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
They were tracking. Maybe they've been watching some Rocket Lab Weekly or something.
Interesting to hear, because one of the things, the catalyst that I've always been wondering is and I'm glad that Adam differentiated it, because maybe some of the more beginner investors might have heard like Adam saying, oh, like the break even point for cash flow is in 27, and so people might have interpreted that as profitability. So profitability is still on track for 26, right? And so that's when we should see positive EBITDA, but and probably I don't know if they're tracking for EBITDA positive as kind of profitability, or if they're tracking for like net income from a GAAP perspective. But we'll cross that line. I'm okay with either personally. I don't think they're going to be too far from each other. But the thing that I think a lot of people need to recognize is like the cash flow to me is more important, because if you're actually able to be free cash flow positive, that means you don't have to necessarily go, unless it's a massive investment, you don't necessarily have to go to market to get debt or anything like that. You're actually going to be able to add cash to the balance sheet, which is obviously the goal, right? So
yeah, but here I think that the P&L, because I understand what he meant, is that if you're producing 3 or 4 neutrons at the same time, like you have that cost up front, but in your bookkeeping you only count that, because you only recognize the revenue with the launch, you also only recognize the cost with the launch. So like in your bookkeeping, like that will be I know the Swedish word, but I don't know the English word. Like it will be separated from like your present performance, because you have this bookkeeping principle that you need to match the costs and the income with the time when they occur. So you could have what did he say, 16 million to produce a stage 1, which was a very interesting that he gave out that number. And if you're producing 3 of them, that's like a 48 million cost that you're going to incur, that is not going to be on your P&L, because it's going to be basically investment in future. So it's going to hurt the cash flow, but not your P&L.
What do you think, Scott?
I mean, good overall. A few extra things that kind of stood out to me. We saw the Electron with the highest average selling price, 9.3 million this quarter, which is like crazy good. And that's without haste. So not only that, but I think looking forward as well, the Electrons that are in backlog, I think that's also seeing all-time high average selling price as well. So that business just keeps going up and to the right. It's great to see. I did find it interesting that there's only 3 haste outlined for the rest of the year. Because if memory serves, and I wish I could remember where I saw it, but it was some official talking about wallops. And they mentioned, I think, what was it, 6 launches, or 6 electrons flying out of wallops within the next 8 months. And so I kind of looked at that and I was like, okay, we got this haste, this haste, this haste, and kind of went down the list. And I was like, okay, that more or less checks out. But with I guess like 2 or 3 of those removed from the year, it kind of leads me to wonder what exactly is launching. Like maybe it's Hawkeye, and I think they've launched out of Virginia in the past. So maybe
when was that stated though? Was that stated recently, or was that earlier in the year?
Like just this past week, I think it was very recently.
Because if it's in the next 8 months, then it could bleed into the first quarter of next year as well.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think they are bringing in. Oh, which one was that? That's Q1. Or no, Aspera's. Kratos is the one I was thinking of. So Kratos would be that's Q1, and that was one of the ones that was factoring in. But
I'm with you. I mean, they had 2 launches last year. 2023 was the inaugural. There's only been 3 haste launches to date, and so to hear 3 launches for the remainder of the year. I mean, you go 1, 2, 3, right? And we're now kind of 2 years into the program. I would kind of hope. So my hope is maybe I'm being pessimistic. I guess if you think about it, the first haste was in the middle of the year in 2023. So maybe I'm being too aggressive here. And you're right. Maybe the third year we'll start to see that ramp up. I'm just kind of curious. You see all these contracts being signed for haste, right? Kratos and everything else. So it's like, where are the launches? And so fingers crossed that I've always anticipated it was going to be the second half of this year. Looks like we're going to get 3. So fingers crossed that we end up starting to ramp up in 2026 for haste.
And I'm wondering, like, they did mention a launch in 1 week. I wonder if that is that haste that's been trying to go off for like over a month now. Because then past that, it's like, is that like 2 Lidos past Jake, and that's the 3 haste for the year? Must be, right? I don't know. Overall, it's an interesting call though. Like, not a ton of like big hitting announcements or anything, but still trending in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, and not to toot my own horn, but what did you guys think about the Neutron commentary, like about the launch this year? Because I kind of felt like we are psychologically being prepared for a Neutron delay.
Vince.
Why
get yourself in trouble?
I need to send you like a private, like, please take this up. I'm not allowed to take this question up. But that's how I felt. That's how I felt.
No, I think they're just
bearish.
covering their bases. Yeah. Probably just covering their bases. Like, I don't know. I'm not too worried about it, but we'll see. We'll see.
Okay, I mean, how like, are you more confident or less confident that we are launching in 2025 after this call?
I'm probably about the same, because I'm like kind of heavily leaning towards like November, December as a launch, like I was before the call, and I still kind of hold true to that, just because like Neutron is still making its way there. And I'm not sure how soon that's supposed to be. Like the dredging and stuff was all supposed to take place, I think September. Maybe that's why they're bringing all the investors in, just so we can grab some shovels and help them out. But
he did say that the dredging was not for the inaugural launch. I think he said that it was for scaling of production or something like that.
Oh, I thought that was to bring in like the initial parts, because they weren't able to get them shipped in elsewhere or something.
No. He said on the call, the comments can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he said it, that everything is under control and the dredging is for scaling later.
Oh, I must have missed that. Okay, cool. Well, that's good news then.
I must say I'm less confident that we are launching this year, because he said that there are certain risk factors that have not been cleared, and for us to launch this year, everything has to go well. And when does everything go well in a rocket program? I mean, I how do you call it? Like, I still think we can launch this year, but I feel that they laid it open that we might just go over into 2026, which again, it's not a deal breaker for me. And I much rather that they, as you said, the successful launch is not that we clear the tower, not that we don't fly sideways. It's like we need to reach orbit on this first launch.
Yeah, I mean, I just, even if it is, I mean, the fact that they're moving as fast as they can, and to me, I think they're taking their step, and I think we could be as critical as we want today, and I think people can throw rocks at it like you are, Vince, because you're bearish. And just kidding, but no, people can throw rocks at it and say, "Oh my God, how could they have delayed from December of 2024 to the first quarter of 2026 or second quarter of 2026 when they eventually launch it?" And if you think about it, in the grand scheme of things, it's still a vastly successful program considering the competition and analogs across the United States. And I think a lot of people are being super critical and impatient, because a little bit of money is on the line, and it's a marathon with this particular process and not a sprint. And, so I think Pete is 100% correct here. And look, they could have met the December 2024. I am 100% confident that if they were not trying to make sure that they had the assembly lines and everything fine-tuned and, you know, building serial number 2s and number 3s and number 4s like they are already for Neutron, they could have launched this thing in December of 2024, I bet.
Yeah.
But the thing that I'm confident in, it gives me, I much rather them approach it the way that they have. Now, the only way that I could see this being a catastrophic failure is if for some reason the design is complete shit, which I don't think that is plausible. Just knowing the way that these guys operate, and but there's always that possibility, right? A very slim possibility, but there's always a possibility that for some reason there's a flaw in the design. But in that respect, then a lot of the delay and the assembly line building and building the serial number 2s, 3s, 4s, etc., will have been for naught. But to me, I much would rather them do the approach that they have today, because it's almost like, okay, they get the first launch off and now they're ready for customers, and they can not only just wait and try to get the assembly line up and running, but the assembly line is already up and running. They can build the second Neutron and get it all integrated and tested and then say, all right, who's next, right? And so to me, that's more important. And it's almost like you can hit the ground running instead of trying to take baby steps. And so I think a cadence of 135 is going to be very important. And actually, I think it might actually end up being much faster than 135, but I think that they should take the appropriate conservatism. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be like 1.8, like 12 or something like that. I mean, I think it'll be, 1.4 or 1.5, so I wouldn't be surprised, but it also depends on the amount of customers, right? So, there's that piece too. There's only going to be several launches that are R&D launches. So this first launch will be, sorry, I'm like kind of just getting on my soapbox here. It's going to be the first launch, which is R&D to demonstrate capability, right? Just like they did for Electron. And the second launch might be also capability to make sure that they can try to land it, right? So maybe they get a soft landing on the first try, and so maybe they only have to do 2 Neutrons, but in total, and then the second one lands on the barge and we're all fat, dumb, and happy. But I think we already know that return on investment is not going to be ready until mid 2026 at the earliest anyway. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if we start having customer flights go out that are expendable in the first half of 2026.
I want to raise another point, which is very interesting, which supports what you were saying, like which version would you rather have? So in the conference call, they said that the Electron launch price is going up. And why is it going up? Because it's a more and more proven vehicle, and you have to pay up for the precision and for the reliability. And which one would you rather have? Would you have that they launched Neutron in 2024 and it blows up on the pad, or it goes sideways, and then he says that, okay guys, it was great progress, Astra style. We got a lot of data. We flew 20 minutes, and all this data will be incorporated into the next flight, which results in either no customers being booked or contracts being booked at a much lower price. So I think that the fact that they're perfecting Neutron is going to lead to the same thing that is happening to Electron, that the average sales price is going higher and higher and higher at a much faster clip than it happened to Electron, right? Because like on Electron, we started discounted, and then it took years to work off that backlog, and now the price is going up. And with with Neutron, it's like there's no discounts. We're starting at the 55 million. I mean, okay, I think the first contract was like 49 or something, but in that ballpark. And then I think very soon the price can start going up, hopefully.
No, definitely. And like, not even like the price is like indirectly affected as well, but like think of all the individual parts as well that have had extra time for testing, and like to kind of what you're saying, it's like, yeah, do you want something to happen fast, or do you want it to happen right? Because a lot of these things, like, maybe, I don't know, this is completely like pulling this from nowhere, but like there might have been a valve, for example, that they had an extra 3 months to have under pressure, and now it's like, oh shit, do you see this like hairline crack here? Well, if you didn't get that extra 3 months, that might have caused the mission to fail entirely. So I think this, we often look at like those, I mean, what's on the screen now, and we're like, okay, we're going to get this, and this done. But it's not just that those items that we're waiting for are going to happen in succession, but even the items that are already completed are being iterated into what is ultimately going to be a better functioning rocket. So yeah, it's like anything, any sort of like media, like a video game, movie, whatever. Like, do you want it a bit later, or do you want it early but to be bad forever? Right?
GTA 6. I want it for Christmas. It ruined my freaking Christmas that they delayed it into. Is that what you were speaking about?
Exactly. That's it.
Exactly. Okay.
But I think, how do I say that? I mean, I think we're still being, no offense, Vince, you're still being too bearish to an extent, because, and I'm trying to play devil's advocate here. I could see a case like you're saying where it does get delayed to 2026. There's a hiccup, and there ends up being an additional 3 months because of something, and it could be regulatory, right? And it could be not at all Rocket Lab's fault. It could just be straight up regulatory, and that happens all the time. But we already know, like, take you for example, the one in the upper right hand corner, engine qualification. They're doing 50 tests a week, 3 to 4 a day. We just saw a 152-second hot fire test, and it went off beautifully. So it's like, that qualification piece is like, okay, maybe they haven't hit the green button yet, but it doesn't mean that they aren't making great progress and it's not very close to being completed. So I think when we see these blues, we should recognize that it's probably closer or potentially closer than we think to being done. And it wouldn't surprise me if in the next few weeks we start seeing more and more of these things ticked off. And heck, maybe there's going to be more information that comes to light over literally the next, I guess, 3 weeks, right? I mean, they're going to do that inaugural LC3 ribbon cutting, it sounds like, at the 28th. And maybe they end up having the stage 2 there, right? And I don't know. I really don't. But it'll be interesting.
Some lucky retail investors maybe see that one.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you misunderstand me. I'm not saying that they're behind. I'm more saying, because you're right.
I know,
like,
you're playing devil's advocate. I get it.
Like when you're looking at this, they're really freaking close. And I think that they are, like, they're not quickying it. Like, they're really taking their time to make sure everything is just right. And that takes its time. Because like, logically, if you're looking at this table, like, the only thing that they have not started doing that is the static fire, when they clamp down the rocket and then the whole stage 1 is together. The wet dress rehearsal, which is basically usually 1 week before the flight, and then the actual flight. I mean, it's like, that's the only things that they have not started yet, right? And then, so for me, the only reason why if it would not fly is that their Rocket Lab way of doing it to make sure that everything is just right, and I'm completely fine with it. I basically don't, like, I let Sir Peter Beck be Sir Peter Beck.
Stupid question. Maybe Scott, you're smarter than I am about those things. Stage 1 static fire, does that have to happen on the pad?
Yeah, no,
because it did for Starship.
Yeah. Like, it has to happen, yes. I'm not sure if they'll have like a separate location. I think I assume it'll just be all, well, it must be all on the same pad, right?
I would guess, because you need to clamp down the rocket on a pad, and I don't think they have an abundance of pads in Virginia where they
kind of where it's like, where else would you?
It must be more. Yeah.
That's gonna be so cool. The fact that we potentially see it in the next 6 months.
Yeah,
like a static fire.
Let's hope we
even
see
just
the static
standing
fire
up is going to be just unreal.
Okay, and what did you guys think about when one analyst asked, like, okay, what do you think about the 40% margin? And then Adam Spice was like, yeah, like, we're gonna get there, but it's more like in the high 30s now.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah. And I think we might see a hit over the next 2 years, probably, like as things scale up, the Neutron in particular. But I mean, like, as long as Neutron's hitting even a 30% margin, like you have Electron already at, like, what was Electron this quarter? I should know. I just put something out. Yeah, already at 30.5% for launch services. That's probably only going to go up and to the right. And then if Neutron would be kind of dragging in, and keep in mind, this is all GAAP. So if you're looking at non-GAAP, it's going to be even better. But I mean, space systems, you're already at, like, what, 40%? But once you start getting that data layer in there as well, like, what does that even look like? Like, that's definitely, what, 60% margin, but could be much higher, could be up to 80% margins for something like software related. So yeah, I mean, they're heading there, that's for sure.
Okay, so I see a lot of comments that people are saying that the stock is dropping. I don't think it's that bad, but why do you guys think that is?
It's going to zero, guys. $43. You should sell it all.
My guess is it's probably folks that are, like, just swing trading earnings, and
Why is the stock dropping?
For us, hey.
Oh my God.
No, I'd imagine there's some people trying to, like, swing trade the Mars orbiter or something like that, like some big announcement. But yeah, 800% in a year. That's nuts.
Guys, why is the stock dropping? I need Lambo today, not tomorrow, not next week.
Dude, 800%, that's like private island territory, not Lambo.
I know. Why do you think I've been looking at the islands? Some islands are cheap. The undeveloped islands in, like, the middle of remote locations are very cheap. You'd be surprised. But the nice islands near, like in New York and stuff, the near infrastructure. Hey man, $2. I'm actually kind of upset. I was kind of hoping for, like, a bad reaction. Like, damn. I would love to buy some in the 30s.
Yeah.
I hate saying that because I know some people are like, I can't believe Matt would say that. I'm going to lose money. And it's like, dude, like, I'm looking at this from, I'm going to be holding this stock potentially forever, getting dividends, buybacks from this stock, 10, 15 years down the road. And I think a lot of people, and I said this in my chat group, like, somebody said something and it pissed me off earlier. So I'm going to get on my soapbox again. But, like, they were like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, people are acting like earnings reports are the Super Bowl. It's like, it's a check-in to make sure that management and everything is kind of ticking along, right? And yes, with these earnings calls, you can find out, like Redwire did yesterday, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn because I didn't have the opportunity, but from what I'm hearing, like, it didn't go so well, right? And so obviously, people are leaving in droves because the integration of the merger obviously isn't as expected or something along those lines. So in that respect, it's like, to me, I think some people are looking at this and they're too busy trying to get rich, and it's hampering their opportunity to get wealthy. And I think a lot of people need to listen to that statement again, because I see people being like, oh my God, this is a once in a lifetime generational opportunity. And then in the same breath, they're going to be like, oh my God, I hit $50. I'm going to sell. And it's like, if you honestly think that, you're selling at a $25 billion market cap, where do you think that the market cap will end up? Right. And I'm not saying if you need the money, don't sell and stuff like that. It's your personal investment and everything of the like. But I hate hearing these people that think that they're smarter than they really are and saying, like, oh, I'm going to sell at 50 so I could buy back at. It's like, I know people that sold today, people that mentioned to me that they sold today so they could hopefully buy back at a lower price. And it's like, well, I'm glad you took the capital gains taxes, because I'm sure you're not going to offset that by the 3% lower price you're going to be able to buy it at now. It's like, so now you just took a 15-25% hit on capital gains taxes on a couple 100% gain. So now you're buying back at a lower price. In reality, you're net negative on that. So sometimes people are just making the wrong decisions, and I think that they think that they're being smarter than they really are.
I know some.
Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say, I know someone who sold Palantir at 11 and said, I will buy back when it's below 10 again, or something like 13 or something. And yeah, look at how that one turned out.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here because I'm not the type that swing trades entire positions, but like, I think there is a time and place to trim and to add, but like, I do agree with you, Matt, in the way that like, I don't think it should be done with the intent of like, I'm getting out so that I can get back in here. Cause like, you're never going to hit the top. You're never going to hit the bottom. Granted, if it is something, maybe I completely contradict myself, but maybe if it's something like it's clearly overvalued and you want to wait till it's even fair valued, maybe, but even then like the whole stack, like that's crazy. Cause like, I mean, Rocket Lab is a great example. Like when it was at like, $5, if you were to look at like ULA, you could be like, okay, Rocket Lab's a little bit ahead of itself, right? Ahead of its skis a little bit, but then, and I've trimmed along the way. I have no shame in saying that, but like it's, net, like I don't feel bad at all with what my portfolio has done over the past 5 years. So I don't know if you're out there like kicking yourself for trimming the entire position, maybe it's not the end of the world, but like just to what Matt's saying, it's like, you always got to factor in the capital gains, and you're never going to hit the top. You're never going to re-enter back in at the bottom. It's kind of a risky game when, if you think the stock's still going to 10x over the next decade or whatever, maybe don't trim everything. I don't know. Not financial advice as always, but
I'll come with the third viewpoint.
Sure.
So Rocket Lab is a really, really volatile stock. And by definition, volatility means that it goes up a lot when it goes up, and when it comes down a lot. And so I don't think we should be mad at each other because Rocket Lab went up a lot, because it's a volatile stock. And then there's going to be pullbacks, and they will be violent pullbacks because this is not Apple. And I don't think we should be mad at each other for that. So yeah, that's and then if some people feel like it matches their investment style to trim, that's fine.
Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to. I thought you were going to.
Well, no, I was just going to jump in and just say, like, I trimmed Redwire a little while back, and I'm very happy that I did after yesterday's print. So,
by the way, what happened? Now you guys are keeping me in the mystery. I also saw something on Twitter, but just the TLDR.
TLDR is they acquired a business that was roughly the size of their business. Backlog shrunk somehow during that process. But I mean, devil's advocate, like I think it's one of those things where the print is exceptionally bad because of all the integration costs and stuff. I don't think it's really as bad as is perceived, but I don't know. I'm not exactly struck with competence right now from management. Just even in like, I don't care. Like even the way that Peter Beck is like, yeah, we're hoping to launch this year, but we're not going to, is very different from being like, we're going to do it, and then falling short. Like even, it just seems like they kind of like Redwire just really, like they had great guidance, for example, and then just yesterday, a few days after once the acquisition was locked in, they're just like, oh, and we're taking away, or not taking away, but like heavily reducing guidance, and we're withdrawing our adjusted EBITDA guidance, and
wow.
Just
So this could be an entrepreneurial drift, is what you're saying. What Peter Beck talked about, that you need to be focusing, and then they somehow like, let's acquire this other business that is completely unrelated. And
I don't know what and to be fair as well, I think the market was probably looking at like, okay, the Edge acquisition is completed, therefore Q2 revenue is going to be way up, right? But the acquisition closed on June 13th. So the revenue that's shown in that print is 17 days worth.
Yeah.
But then it has all like the equity-based compensation, which is like very heavy, that is baked in there. So I think it's like kind of artificially looks a little, well, I don't know if that's the right word for it, but we'll go with it. Looks worse than what it really is, or what even Q3 is going to be. But even still, it's just that like taking away guidance after you've been talking about it since I think January is when they first talked about it, and they've been super confident, and then suddenly yesterday comes out and they're just like, oh, just kidding, we're going to take everything away and blah blah blah. So
I had a lot of people reaching out to me over the last 90 days, like, Matt, why aren't you in Redwire? Are you thinking about buying Redwire? Honestly, not. I never really was. It piqued my interest because so many people asked me. I looked at it, and the pro forma for the two combined businesses, I didn't know what was expected of earnings, but the pro forma looked very bullish. So the EBITDA was supposed to be like in the hundreds of millions or so, like 100 million or something like that for fiscal year 2025. I don't know if that's even on the table at all. So it seemed like it was supposed to be very bullish, but so it sounds like it's not bolting on and integrating well at all. But I don't know. I need to look at it.
Yeah, definitely worth looking into, because like I said, I think it's like it looks a lot worse than it probably will be even 3 months from now.
And I want to clarify, like, I'm not saying don't sell, right? And but my frustration is with the people, and I want to iterate this again. My frustration is with the people that are like, this is a once in a lifetime sort of company, generational type company, and then a week later they sell, and then it's just like, then they're wondering like and regretting like, oh, should I buy back in? Should I buy back? It's like, if you need the money and you made a decision and it's too large of your portfolio, you're diversifying, you meet your objective, let's say, like you got to your $2 million goal and you're like, this is my setup for life. I'm going to dividends. Like I can live off this for the rest of my life. I'm getting out of single stocks, ETFs only for me. I hear you. Like I get that. And it's all personal, like I've heard people buying new cars, being able to retire early, being able to buy, pay for weddings. Like I've heard it all, with respect to Palantir and Rocket Lab. And so I'm excited when people take profits, but to have that same breadth of being like, oh my God, like this is a generation I'm never selling. And then a week later. So it's like, I feel people need to like, everyone has their own style. People are day traders. Like you said, some people are swing traders. So, but to hear some of the people, like especially the people that I would consider follow me pretty religiously, and then they'll just be like, yeah, this is a once in generational type company. Yes, the TAM for space is massive. Sell, and then like question whether or not they should be like buying back in. Like it's kind of mind boggling to me. And like I said, like if you're going to use that money for something else, diversify into a different business, different sector, etc., I get that. I understand. But to out of one side of your mouth a week ago, say X, and it's like, and I always go back to this. I have another friend who's not at all under Rocket Lab, and he hates, I don't know why, he just refuses to look at it, and that's fine. Some people just don't like the company or the sector, and I get it. But they just love playing with the soap. Like, and eventually like the soap will just like disappear in their hands because they play with their portfolio so much. And I try to tell people that analogy all the time. It's just like literally every month they're move their entire portfolio into something completely different. And it's like so much efficiency is lost when you do that. Like you introduce so, and like you said, like introduce so much in like, anyway.
No, I hear you. Sometimes like the hardest thing to do with investing is doing nothing at all. And like, I'm feeling that big this week. Like I kind of mentioned last week on the show, like there's, I think five different companies of mine are reporting all in 1 week, and just sitting on my hands. Like I'm wanting to buy this or do that. And I'm just like, no, sometimes the best move is no move.
Yep. I can tell you all about it. Cool, guys. Matt, how long do you want to continue the stream?
I have nothing. I mean, if you guys are concluded, I don't mind calling it here. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. I'm kind of excited. There's some things we have in the pipeline. Once again, a plug for our Rocket Lab Weekly. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
Yes, all I can say is it looks like we will have an interview with Sir Peter Beck and maybe Adam Spice. That's all I can say.
Nice.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it'll be interesting couple months. So we'll see how things develop.
Yes, sir.
Cool. Thank you guys, and appreciate you guys streaming with me. It's always fun.
Anytime, man. Anytime.
Yeah, the same. Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, thank you all for chiming in. We'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers.